Okay. Peace and shalom, family. Peace and shalom. What's going on? Peace and shalom. It's your brother Divine Prospect, Kingdom Harbinger Ministries in the building. What's going on, everybody? This is a impromptu session that we're doing on tonight. This is Turnt Up Tuesday. All right. So we're gonna rock on here for about an hour or two, and just build with y'all on a couple of things I want to share with the community, and then from there, time given, we'll be able to do our Q&A. All right. So I'm just going to give a moment for everybody to join in. Again, when you come in, family, make sure you hit the thumbs up button. Hit the thumbs up button so the algorithm can capture this video and move it to the top of people's suggestions and their YouTube feed. All right. So make sure you hit the thumbs up button. Make sure you share this video as well. Share this video. I didn't share the video. So in order for this to get out there, I'm going to have to rely on you guys to do it for me. So I appreciate that. I want to give a shout out to everybody that is here in the chat right now. Thank y'all for rocking with us, being patient as I got things together so I can do this short session with you guys. All right. Now, this session is a precursor. This Thursday evening is so-called Christmas Eve. We're going to have a special on so-called Christmas Eve. And God willing, hopefully I may do another session for our Freestyle Friday. So you guys will get 3 live streams this week. All right. This week is also extremely busy for me as well, things that I'm taking care of. I'm saying, since this holiday season is here, use that as a time to work on their Sabbath. Yeah, that's what I do, right? Because Christmas is a Sabbath for the secular realm or the secular society in America. So my job is to purposely work on their Sabbath. Okay, this is not our Sabbath. All right. Okay, so that's what we're looking forward to. And then next week, we'll be doing another session on Tuesday, and then we do another session on so-called New Year's Eve. And then hopefully we'll be able to do it that Friday, which would be New Year's Day. OK, so we're trying to give you guys at least 3 sessions the next 2 weeks, this week and next week. It's going to take a lot for me to put time aside to knock these things out, but I think you guys will thoroughly enjoy them. All right. And I'll try to bring some stuff out. Last year, I did some sessions on the holidays or the so-called holidays. Or it is kind of holiday. I was a set apart day. And we went heavy. You know what I'm saying? This year we went in on Thanksgiving. Last year we went in on Christmas. We went on in Halloween, and we went in on New Year's Day last year. So if you missed that, go back and check out our holiday specials that we did. And let me know what you guys think. All right. All right, so waiting for a couple more people to come on in, and then we're going to get started. All right. Let me toss this over a little bit. All right. All right, so let me go ahead and give some shout outs as we wait for people to come on in, and then I'm going to get the intro stuff out the way, and we can get into the meat and potatoes of tonight's session. Hopefully you guys enjoy it, because, again, we always take time to teach, right? This is not a platform where we just debate people all the time, and we teach, you know what I'm saying? And if you go throughout the garment of lessons and lectures and live streams on this channel, you see that I try my best to teach all the time, you know what I'm saying? And if you can bear through the live streams, whether it's a discussion with somebody as well, there's also a teaching moment. But I also provide an opportunity for the public to interact with me, interact with KHM, and interact with you guys here in the chat. You feel what I'm saying? So this channel is very unique in the things that we do, the flexibility that we have to do things. And, it's just a wonder to be able to have great people in the chat supporting this ministry. And we're doing everything we can going into the so-called new year strong, man. 2021 is, you're going to see, Kum KHM. You know what I'm saying? KHM is going to rise in 2021, man. We got so many plans, so many things we want to do. And it's just a situation with, this coronavirus thing and the vaccine and everything that's slowing things down a little bit, you know what I'm saying? But this allows us to be more heavily reliant upon the move of the Most High. You feel what I'm saying? And if you guys want me to do a separate session on the vaccine, let me know. I can get in depth into that. Again, it is a novel vaccine. The type of vaccine that's being released, clinical trials of previous ones have been done, but they've never been officially released. This is the first time an mRNA vaccination has been released into the public, and the way it works is extremely unique, right? And this is why I am very apprehensive in recommending it to other people, and why I myself don't plan on taking it. Okay, so that's just my position. But if you want a separate session on that, let me know, and I could do a separate session on that. All right, I could probably save that for maybe next Tuesday when I go live, if you guys want me to do that. So hit 1 if you want me to do that, and if so, I'll definitely get that popping for y'all. Okay. All right. So hit 1 if you want me to do it. Hit 1, and also hit 2 if the audio and video is on point. Hit 3 if you don't want me to do the lecture, and hit 4 if the audio and video is not working. So hit 1 if you want me to do the COVID-19 vaccine session next week. Hit 2 if you the audio and video is working fine. Hit 3 if you don't want me to do the lecture, and hit 4 if the audio and video is messing up. I should have did that better, but I'm sure y'all can follow. Y'all are hitting 1. Okay. All right, somebody's hitting alpha and bait. Issue code's hitting alpha and bait, which is 1 and 2. All right. Okay. So y'all want me to do the vaccine, and you're saying the audio and video is fine. All right. Great. Okay, so that works. All right. So I'll do a little session on that next Tuesday, and I'll explain to you what an mRNA vaccine is, give you valid sources, peer-reviewed sources from the medical journals and the scientific community in regards to what this vaccine is and why I don't recommend it. When I say I don't recommend, I'm not telling people not to get it. I'm just saying to people, just be cautious and be aware of what it is, right, before you put it in your body, right? I had a video up on this channel that I did on Sandra at Large. She had a show where they were talking about the vaccine. If you go back and check out that video, I talked a little bit about it as well, but I didn't get into the actual agent or the mode of action of how this thing actually works, right? And the agents necessary to bring about that mode of action. But I'll get into that next Tuesday. All right. Okay. So since y'all want the lecture, I'm going to do it. Since y'all saying the audio and video is fine, I'm about to get it popping. Make sure you guys hit the thumbs up button. Hit the thumbs up button, fam. We need you to hit that thumbs up if you're enjoying it. And if you want this video to hit the top of the YouTube charts via the algorithm, so we can bring more people on in. All right. So let's go over a few things real quick. First and foremost, for me, make sure you guys have the KHM app. Okay. I say this all the time. Make sure you guys have the KHM app, and I'm going to keep saying it until I get everybody on the app. All right. Every time you interface with the app, you've signed up for something in the app, we've captured everything, and we're working on processing all the requests and inquiries. All right. So if you haven't heard a response back from us, it is coming soon. Trust me. All right. Just be patient with us as we get through all the requests and get to yours personally. Okay. So again, family, make sure you download the app. So let me go ahead and show you guys what the app looks like for anybody who do not have it yet or who does not have it yet. I'm going to drop it on the screen so you can take a look at it. All right. So what you're going to do is go to your Google Play Store. If you have an Android phone, go to your Google Play Store. If you have an Android phone, you're going to type in My One Church app. You're typing in My One Church app. Okay. And when you type in the My One Church app, this is what's going to show up. All right. You're going to click to install it. And once you install the app and you open it up, in the zip code field, you're going to type 30064. 30064. All right. And if you need a reminder of what that is, you'll see the ticker down below. And as it goes through, it'll tell you about the app, and it'll tell you what the zip code is. Once you enter the zip code, you're going to see our ministry organization pop up. Just click on that, and that will bring you into our app. So My One Church app is the gateway into our personalized app. All right. So this is what you want to do if you have Android. It's going to look like this when you go to the Google Play Store. Okay. My One Church app. All right. Now we have events on there. Sign up for the events that we have going on. All right. We have our KHM Holistic Research Paradigm for Bible Study classes that will start in January. Okay. Mid-January, or maybe after mid-January, maybe third week in January. We'll see. So that's what we're working towards getting done in January. Also, you'll see this, sessions like this. I'm going to start adding it to the event, even if they're pop-up events. I'll put it there so you get a push notification through the app when we are live, in case you missed it on YouTube, because sometimes people don't get it on YouTube, right? So here's another way for us to get that message out to you. Also, you'll receive push notifications for any updates that's going on with the ministry. Also, you can click on the membership button once you get to our home screen, and you can sign up for a membership. All right. So far, we got over 250 people signed up for membership. Right. Praise the Most High. You know what I'm saying? That's great. That's wonderful. And those are people outside of our chapters, right? So there's a lot of people that really want to link up with KHM, and I'm in awe, man. And I'm grateful that so many people want to work to actually rebuilding their community. All right. So here's the One Church app, the My One Church app for Android. And now let me show it to you for Apple App Store. I say Apple Play. All right. Here's the one for the Apple App Store. Let me go ahead and bring it up on the screen for y'all. Okay, this is what it looks like. All right, it's the My One Church app. You're gonna go to your Apple App Store, type in My One Church app. All right, and you're gonna click the get or install. And once it downloads, it's gonna bring you to a screen that's gonna ask you to enter in the zip code. And that zip code is 30064. You're gonna hit enter, and then you're gonna click on select on our ministry organization. It'll say Kingdom Harbinger Ministries. All right. All right, so everybody, make sure you get the app. If you don't have the app, make sure you get the app. Okay, make sure you get the app. All right. Okay. All right, so I'll make sure I get it out the way. All right. So next up, we have our Patreon. Don't forget our Patreon. You'll see it also flashing down below. The Patreon is www.patreon.com/DivineProspect. We're on the road to 300. Once we hit 300, we will be doing another cash giveaway. Once we hit 300, we will be doing another cash giveaway. All right. So currently, right now, we have 288 patrons. So we need 12 more patrons. So please, family, share the link for our Patreon page. I'm going to drop it also in the chat so you guys have it. And you can also see it scrolling across the screen at the bottom. All right, here it is right there. It's in the chat. It's also scrolling at the bottom. And you're also going to see it in the description box below. All right, so we need 12 more Patreons. So as soon as we hit 12 more patrons, then we can do our cash giveaway. We have a mystery cash giveaway, a mysterious amount. We're not going to say what it is. We're just going to give it through a raffle, right? Everybody who's a Patreon will automatically, it's automatically eligible and will be added to a raffle where we'll pick a winner. And the winner that we pick will win the cash giveaway. All right. So we're on the road to 300. Right. And I want to thank everybody else who signed on, all of our 288 patrons. Thank you so much for keeping this ministry going. All right. You're the lifeblood of the things that we do here. You provide us access to things. You help to take care of any expenses that we have as a ministry. You allow us to provide free services to the community. So hat tip off to everybody who signs up for the Patreon. And also when you sign up for the Patreon, there's books on the Patreon. There's academic articles that I've hand selected, books that I've hand selected. There's also a biblical Hebrew essentials for laymen and biblical Greek essentials for laymen. When I go through this lesson today, I'm going to touch on a little bit of Greek, a little bit of biblical Hebrew, and a little bit of Aramaic. And if you want access to courses for, beginners who don't know anything about these languages, we have it on our Patreon. If you pledge $20 or more, you get access to these courses. So what we do here at KHM, what I'm doing here right now, because I have so much on my plate, I'm just providing coaching. I don't do the formal teaching for Hebrew and biblical Greek. However, I provide these courses for people who are interested. And once you go through the courses, if you have questions or concerns, if it comes up while we're doing this or when we do our classes next month, then I'll go into depth and into detail, and I can be able to get you up to speed. All right, because it's easier for me to coach now than actually take time aside and set up a separate class to do language. All right. However, like I said, everything is on a Patreon. All right. So the Patreon is providing you with all of this stuff, tons of resources for the little bit that you are able to sacrifice and invest in the ministry. We want to give you a huge ROI. All right. So again, the Patreon is right there in the chat. I dropped the link again. Let me show you the screen so you can see a couple of new things that we've added to the Patreon. All right, I'm going to show it to y'all real quick. So just give me a second. Let me show it to y'all. Let me see. All right, let me bring it up on the screen. All right. So here's the Patreon. Let me zoom in just so you can see what it looks like and also see what we have going on here. All right. So we had 288 Patreons. That's awesome. Patreon breaks it down to 209 images, 14 links, 1 poll, 42 videos. We do have images. Some of these images that they're saying consist of the book suggestions that we give. There's also a link in the post for any book suggestion that we give. There's a link for you to access the book and be able to read it at no additional cost. Okay. So we released this book here called The Gospel of John, More Light from Philo, Paul, and Archaeology. Excellent book to give you some more backdrop into what's going on in the book or the Gospel of John. All right. And if we go further, we have another article called Sabbath, Temple, and Eden. And it goes and ties in rituals in regards to the Sabbath, the temple, and Eden, right? Excellent article. I advise everybody to read it if you can. It's a short read. It's not that long. It's a great article, something that we did add recently. Also, we added a new book called A New Approach to Textual Criticism, right? Which is the coherence-based method of discerning, the text of the New Testament. And those of you who are interested in textual criticism, here's a great book on it in regards to the New Testament. I'll be touching on a little bit of textual criticism in what I'm going to share tonight. But if you want books on this, if you could just go to our Patreon, we have tons of books on that. All right. All right. So just give me 1 second. All right. Sorry about that. Parent duties. All right. So if those of you who are interested, like I said, in textual criticism, we added this book here, and you guys can go check it out on the Patreon. And then we have a couple other exclusive like interviews and stuff like that. All right. So that's what we have going on Patreon for those of you who are not aware of it. Again, if you have the app, the KHM app, you can access your Patreon right through the app. You can also see us on other social media platforms, whether that's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Everything can be accessed through the app. All right. You can also go into our lessons, the videos that we've done, or lessons. There's also a Bible that you can use right from the app. All right. Let me see if I can show it to y'all right here while I have it. All right. This is the app right here. And then you have membership, groups, events, Patreon, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, lessons, and Bible. You can access everything through the app. All right. Everything can be accessed through the app. All right. All right. So make sure you get it. I showed you guys how to get it if you have Android and if you have Apple. I showed you where you can go to get it. All right. Okay. So let me move forward. The last thing I want to show y'all is this. and then I'll check the chat, give a couple of shout outs, and respond to whatever's being said before we get into the meat and potatoes on tonight. All right. Also, I told you guys about the Dash app, $H Dash. All right. This is a free app that you can download and install. Again, you can get it from your Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. All right. It's $H. Okay. And pretty much what this is a free app. All you have to do is download it. And when you download it, you set up for it, you register, you add a debit card to it, and then you just make purchases, right? You're not paying anything out of pocket. It's a free app that you download. And after you hook up your debit card to it, you just make day-to-day purchases like you normally do. The app will tell you what places that if you make purchases from, the money that you do get back from it. All right. And then there's going to be a part when you're setting up is going to ask you for a referral code. My referral code is RONS35, RONS35, RONS35. That information would also be in the description below. Okay, but this is a great way for you guys to make a little bit of change back from the purchase that you make normally day to day. Okay, and you can make a lot of money back, like you just seen on the screen. If you spend, $26 at Sephora, you get $2 back. You spend $87 on sneakers, you get $13 back. You know what I'm saying? So you're actually saving money, right, by using this and getting cash back. All right. And after you set it up with my referral code, RONS35, you will also be given a referral code. And when you refer other people to the app, you'll get $20 just for referring people to the app. I made almost $500 on this app so far through purchases and referrals, and you could do the same. So that's why I simply just want to put the word out there so that the way you can make a little bit of extra change or unexpected extra change just by sharing this Dash app with people. All right. So I just want to make sure you guys got it. Shout out to everybody that signed up for the Dash app and used my referral code. I truly appreciate that. So now I want you guys to go on, just use your card like you normally do, get your own cash back, and also refer to other people so you can make money on the spot. All right. All right. So I'll make sure I share that with y'all. All right. Make sure y'all have that. And again, those details are down below in the description. All right. All right. So with that being said, let me give a couple of shout outs. All right. And we're going to get started. Shout out to Jetson Silencio in the building. Sister V Love. No problem. No problem. Appreciate that. Janae, Ezra, Shalom, Linda Ricks, Ice Code. All right. My brother Jordan's Cadet, thank you so much for the donation. My brother, he said good night. And I think that was right before we started. So hopefully he's awake now. We'll see, I guess. Shout out to Candace Daniels in the building. Dorv L. I have the physical book, but it's not physically here with me. I have the physical book. It is in New York. However, the actual what you're talking about, you can actually look at half the book on Google Books. You can look it up on Google Books and you can read at least half the book. All right. Shout out to Ice Code. What's going on? A renewed mind. Shalom, shalom. Demetrius Easley. Shalom. Elkham Barlow. What's up? What's up? The Village Faction in the building. Jay Cooley. Lydia B. Abaya's daughter. Coach Vaughn Park in the building. Fum Zile. Matt Shenny. Zeph. Sister V Love. Elder. Yekhet Zel Ben Yisrael. Wait, hold on. I got the thing over there. My bad. Natural Beginning. Shalom, shalom. JD Israel. Shelia Clay Tor. Roland R. Walker. Every time I highlight over it, it kind of grades it out. So that's why I got to move it out the way once I do it. Roland R. Walker. Mark Moore. What's going on? JD Israel. What's going on? Sister Millie Love in the building. Let's see who else we got up in here. Sam Bone, Ya's son. What's going on? What's going on? Let's see. Coco G, Just Want the Truth. Dina Charles. Let's see. Sheila Garland. Shalom, shalom. High Frequency. What's up? Valerie Romo. Shalom. Just Want the Truth. What's going on? What's going on? Jennifer Pacheco. What's going on? Latoya Robert P-Way. My brother Otis Miller in the building. Shauna Dorfer. I think I'm saying that right. Andre Waverers. What's going on? Eddie Machete. Leon Farlow. What's up? What's up? My sister Yawa Asantawa, daughter of Zion. What's going on? What's going on? Israel Witness and Servant. What's going on? Royal Gem in the building. Houston Rebirth Tribe. Shalom, shalom, King. I think I got your email. You emailed me, my brother. I think you emailed me. So I'm going to respond back to it. But I think I told you to call the number that you see on the screen. Call, schedule an appointment, and let's wrap over the phone. All right. Shout out to 617. Let's get it. Sister Latoya Roberts said, was intrigued by the teaching you did on meditation. First time. Since then, have been hooked. All praise to the Most High. And if you guys have not seen that, the name of the lecture is called Meditation by the Book. And if one of my mods can drop the link in the chat, it's called Meditation by the Book. So thank you so much for the shout out, sis. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Shout out to Eric Tinsley in the building. Scott Garrett Headley. Shalom King. What's going on? My sister Nisi's PCs in the building. What's going on? Black Ave. What's up? Let me see. Who else we got? Kenesha Morgan. Feed the Spirit. What's going on? A. Jones Media in the building with us. My elder, Ark Lindsay the third in the building. What's going on, Elder Steve Robertson? What's up? Let me see. I think that's everybody. Arcadia Music Group, Son of Yah Dre, Labor Movement. What's going on? Okay. I think that's everybody. I think we got everybody. All right, family. So again, make sure you guys share this. Shout out to KB in the building as well. Make sure you share this link, because after we do it, I'll open it up to a Q&A towards the end. Looks like we're going on almost on our 30-minute mark. All right. So after we hit the 30-minute mark, I'm going to go and jump on from there to the lesson, and then do about an hour in the lesson, and then open up the last 30 minutes for a Q&A, and try to close off in about 2 hours or close to 2 hours. All right. So y'all just bear with me. All right. So I think we're doing good. Let me see. Donna Brown. Shalom. What's going on, Donna? What's going on? All right. Latoya Roberts says, what is the referral code? It's Ron S35, RONS 35. You can also see it in the description box below. All right. Check the description box below and you'll be able to get it. All right. It's right here. PC, she added it there, so you can add that. All right. Latoya Roberts. Yes. So you're going to hit the subscribe button and then hit that bell notification, hit all. Also, if you have the app, what we're going to start doing is I'm going to start adding that to the events calendar. So that way, when we do like these pop-up sessions, I'll take a few minutes to do that before I go live, or early in the day if I know I'm going to go live. And that way you'll be able to see it on the actual app. And you can watch it from the app as well by clicking on YouTube and going to the YouTube button in the app. Okay. All right. So let me see. I think that's everybody. Shout out to New Hope Family Investments. What's going on? My brother Ari Ryder from Detroit. What's going on, King? What's going on? All right. Okay. So we got a good set of people in the building. I appreciate that. All right. So let's go ahead and get it popping, family. All right. That means let's get it started. Okay. Let's get started. Sometimes I gotta be formal because there's formal people in here that may not understand the slang. So I gotta be a little formal, but that's my New York that comes out from time to time. All right. So Son of Jay says, do you have a backup away from YouTube? Yes, but it's domestic backups that I have here. So all the videos I put up, my live streams, as well as the videos that I upload, I do have them all on a hard drive. All right. So if anything ever happens, I can load them back up on YouTube or put them on Vimeo or add them to the app. Okay. Or I could put it elsewhere. All right. So excellent inquiry. I appreciate that. Shout out to Remarkable Ministries in the building. Sister Gail, she put the link in the chat for those of you interested in that lecture. Excellent lecture, because a lot of our people don't even understand what biblical meditation is. Right. So a lot of times they try to go to other cultures and emulate what other cultures do when you already have one that's in the text. All right. So I just bring it out. All right. Aishu Code says the Bible on the app is low key clutch. There's an interlinear in there as well. Yes, it is. So make sure you get the app. Shout out to New Hope Family Investment, says we from the D2. That's what's up. We will be in Detroit next year. We'll be in Detroit. We'll be in Chicago. We'll be in Memphis, Tennessee. We'll be in Jackson, Mississippi. We'll be in New York. We'll be in Durham, Raleigh. We'll be in Houston. We'll be, let me see. I think those are the major places. We'll be possibly Seattle, Sacramento, definitely. So these are the cities that we're going to be in next year. And all the places we'll be setting up a chapter in all these cities. All right. So if you're in any of these cities, you have to get the app and stay in touch with us. You can also click the groups button in the app and join the groups. If you don't see a chapter with your city, join the KHM virtual chapter. From the virtual chapter, we'll have meetings with everybody who is not in a city with a physical chapter. And as we build out chapters in your city, they will move you from the virtual chapter over to your local chapter. All right. So Now we're about to hit the 30-minute mark, so that is our cue to get started. All right. Shout out to Mattiyahu Ben Israel. Serious question, Divine. Before you start, even though other members don't believe in keeping the law, will you still be a part of the New Jerusalem Council? I don't know what you're talking about. Are you talking about something in eschatology? Or are you talking about the New Jerusalem Council with my brother Dante Fortson? I'm not sure which. I think you're talking about the one with on Dante Fortson, but you can confirm that, Mattiyahu. Just let me know. All right. All right. Otis Miller said, "Turn up." Okay. Sister Yawa Ansantua says, "NYC." Yes, we will be in New York, March. Let me get the week for you. We should be there on the 24th of March. All right. March 24th, we'll be in New York all the way into the 29th. And we're trying to bring at least 100 Israelites with us, converging on the UN for the International Day of Remembrance for victims of the transatlantic slave trade. All right. That's on March 25th. And we're trying to bring 100 Israelites with us, storming that place. You know what I'm saying? Getting up in there and seeing what's going on in regards to these UN resolutions that I've shared already in this channel. I've been sharing since 2015. Right. For the past 5 years, I've been sharing information about these UN resolutions. All right. So if you want to be part of that 100, email us, kingdomharbinger@gmail.com, kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. If you want to be part of the 100, it could be more than 100. Right. But we're getting at least 100 Israelites to come with us to New York to merge and converge on the UN. All right. So you can email us if you're down with that. All right. So they can see that we're serious about that. All right. Mattiyahu. Yes. If you're talking about my brother Dante Fortson, yes, I'm still going to be part of the New Jerusalem Council. All right. So it doesn't matter. People, they say, oh, we keep the law. We don't keep the law. Of course, there's brothers on there that don't keep the law. You know what I'm saying? They feel the law's been fulfilled. That's fine. I mean, the purpose of us coming on there is to deal with topics outside of that. There's a million other topics that we can talk about as Israelites outside of just those things. Okay. All right. So the Village Faction, you're absolutely correct. I tried to set up discussions with 4 individuals who promote that, and they all agree initially, and then they wind up changing their mind. So I just can't get nobody on here to have that discussion with me. But if anybody you guys know that want to have that discussion, bring them in here. Send them the link. They can jump in the Q&A. We can build, or they can join in our Freestyle Friday that we do this week. All right, Thursday is a special session, but Freestyle Friday is going to be on Christmas. And we're going to wild out. We going in on Christmas. All right, if we do our Freestyle Friday, it's a wrap. And on Thursday, we're just bringing out more information on Christmas, Christ Mass, Saturnalia, whatever. Christmas. And we bring more information out on that. And then on Friday, we're going to go all in. All right, all in on Friday. So bring anybody, any challenges, bring them in. All right. Bring them in. All right. All right. So Israel Witness and Service says you can come to Barbados sometime in the future. You are welcome anytime. Thank you so much, my brother. I truly appreciate that invitation, and I will take you up on it. All right. So I will reach out to you when we get to Barbados. Please, Israel Witness and Servant, email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com so I can archive your email. So when we make considerations for flying out to Barbados, I will reach out to you first before we touch down. I'll check in. All right. I definitely will check in. All right. Valerie Romo says, do you have the 2021 feast day calendar out yet? No, I don't. I'm working out the remaining dates by the end of this year, and that calendar should be available in February. All right. It should be available in February. All right. So we're working things out. I have a couple of artists that I've spoken to that are working on some art for me now. And then my brother Seth, I don't know if he's in the chat right now. He was very instrumental in helping to put together the previous calendar, the pilot one that we did this year. So I'm gonna also have to bring him back on to help out with that. And in the interim, we're just working on some artists, right? I just made about 6 different artists that I've spoken to. They all have dynamic works. I might just pick a work from each artist instead of just having one artist do the entire 12 months. I might just get, multiple artists to do it so their contributions could go to the calendar and they can leave their mark, and then people can patronize their art going forward, right? Anything I can do to bring the word out to things that are being done by people in the community that is advantageous to the advancement of our people, I'm here to do. All right. All right. I mean, you're right, sis. You're absolutely correct. They always tell me at the last minute, oh, wise counsel has told me not to have this discussion publicly, but we could talk about it behind closed doors. After they agreed to do it publicly. So I don't know what's going on. I have no clue what's going on. No clue. No clue. All right. So, all right, let me get started, man. Let me get started, y'all. Mattiyahu says, even more serious question, bro. Then I'm done. You get a superpower yesterday? Good question. I think I'm gonna save that one. I actually gonna do a campaign on that, man. I have a promo that I'm gonna put out about the superpowers. It's gonna be linked to our Natural Path to Eden service that we offer. All right, but yeah, you know what my superpower is, man? That ruach. That's the superpower, right? The ruach is the superpower. And when you all see what we can do next year for our community on behalf of Yah, you're going to be like, yo, Yah has really given y'all superpowers. Because we've been counted out, we've been marginalized, we've been cast aside, we've been overlooked. And KHM is still growing. We're still building. We're still breaking records. All right? We're still putting up numbers despite any and all opposition that comes our way, because of the way we handle our community. We truly care about our community. So Yah is paving the way for us to do bigger and greater things. And I'm so grateful to him. And I'm grateful to y'all for your support. All right. But when you see 2021, when 2021 is over, you're going to be like, yo, I don't know how Divine and KHM did it, but they really got their superpowers. Shout out to I Am Sister Hadasha in the building. Shalom, sis. What's going on? All right, so let's get started, family. All right, so make sure you guys get your pens and paper. All right, get your pens and paper. We about to go into some serious information, some serious scholarship on tonight. I'm not going to be too deep with it. However, I'm going to give you some considerations, all right, that I think is critical for us to analyze. A lot of times people say, well, why you got to do all that textual criticism? And I'm going to show you why textual criticism is beneficial. Okay, I'm going to show you why it's beneficial and why I do it, because it helps me to reconstruct and restore the ancient pre-Exilic Israelite culture, whether that's thought forms, whether that's approach, actions, day-to-day routines, etc. Right? So it's part of the reconstructive process, right? Textual criticism, all right? So I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to show you a little bit about that because we're going to touch on two things, all right? And we're going to go in. So the first thing we're going to address is the Sabbath. Now, before I get to the Sabbath, there's something very interesting I want to show you in Genesis chapter 2, verse 1, and this will be included in an upcoming lecture. Just like when I go into Genesis chapter 3, parts of that will also be included in an upcoming lecture. All right, shout out to Sister Predestined to Reign, Chant Yah Judah in the building. Shalom, shalom, sis. What's going on? What's going on? All right. So in a future lecture, it will be coming up. Now, I did a post on Facebook. And I did a post on, I didn't do it on Instagram because it was too lengthy for Instagram, but I did it on Facebook and I did it in the community section of YouTube. So if you missed it, the one where I was talking about what the Nakash is in Bereshit chapter 3, or what they call, translate as the serpent or the snake in Genesis chapter 3, I broke it down and I exposed to you guys using the literary device called a synecdoche. And a synecdoche pretty much means a part that represents a whole. Right. So it's a literary term in where you shorten a particular word or phrase and you shorten it for some kind of implied value of telling a story. And then I go in and link that up with Bamidbar chapter 21, when we talk about the Nachashim and Seraphim. So Nachashim, Seraphim is actually the full name of the entities in which the Nakash in Genesis 3 comes from or is derived from. Okay, it's very interesting, very interesting. So I'm going to get into that at a future lecture. But when we touch on things today, just know I'm going to allude to a couple of things that leads up to that lecture. And again, if you want to know, well, how do you get started in even doing this type of analysis, Divine? Sign up for our KHM Holistic Research Paradigm for Bible Study classes through the app. Okay, how do you do it through the app? I'm gonna show it to you real quick. All right, you go to the One Church app, and what you're gonna do, you're gonna click on events, and in events, you're gonna see right here the KHM Holistic Research Paradigm for Bible Study. You're going to click onto that. And then you see here at the bottom right, there's a little blue button. Click on that to RSVP, all right, for this Bible study that we're doing, all right? And you see there's a placeholder flyer that will be revised a little bit and polished a little bit more, but that's the placeholder we have right now for the event, all right? So when you see us go, when you see me go into this and you want to know, well, how do you get started with that? And how, when we do the classes, we bring all of this out and we show you guys how to do that, all right? Ashan Judah de Leon. That's funny, man. I was funny. All right. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's go into Bereshit chapter 2, verse 1. I want to address this real quick before we get to Bereshit chapter 2, verse 2. So the title of this particular session is called Using Textual Criticism to Understand the Sabbath. And then the second part is Genesis 3:15, Targum to New Testament. Remember, I told you guys that the Targum has influenced the New Testament because the Targums was something that was commonly used during the time of 1st century CE Palestine. All right. And you're going to see a lot of the things that are paraphrased in the Targum that come from doctrinal understandings find its way into the New Testament. And I even showed you a book about it, but I'm going to touch on that again when we get to the second part of this session. All right. But the first part is using textual criticism to understand the Sabbath. All right. Textual criticism is necessary to understand a Sabbath. All right. Now, I'm going to get into that. I'm going to show you. But before I do that, let me give you a little nugget in Genesis chapter 2, verse 1. All right. Let's go to Genesis chapter 2, verse 1. All right. Let me bring it up on the screen. All right. All right. Genesis chapter 2, verse 1. It says, thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the hosts of them. Now, check this out. Let's break that out. This word right here. Sebaam. 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 It comes from a root word, sabah. There's a phrase called Yod He Wafe Sebao. You know, the Lord of hosts. So that word, sabah, and this is the inflected form that we find here, but the root word is zabah. And if we go into zabah, it's very interesting. What do you think this word zabah means? Because the way that is translated here in Genesis chapter 2, verse 1 is different than all the other places it's translated in the entire text that I've seen. Very interesting, but this ties into the future lecture we're going to do. So what do you guys think this is? Let me give you all a second to think it out. Somebody put it in the chat. What do you think that word is? That word sabah. Look it up. It's an open book test. All right. Sean's crazy. Alkaline water. That's what's in here. Alkaline water. From a natural artesian spring, to be more specific, right? All right, so what does sabah mean? And I have a couple of people in here that study the language. Tell me what sabah means. What does that root sabah mean? And like I said, it's very interesting how they translated it here, but there's something that needs to be looked into. All right, so we have 150 people in the building. Hit the thumbs up button, family. Hit the thumbs up button, family. As you're coming on in, hit subscribe while you're here. Make sure you share this video. All right. So what does sabah mean in Hebrew? What does sabah mean in Hebrew? Anybody? Drop it in the chat. Again, this is an open book test. An open book test. You just got to look at it and go back in and read it. You have resources to go online and look these things up. All right. So tell me, what do you think it is? And again, what you can also do, if you have the app, you can stay within the ecosystem of KHM. All right. If you have the app, hold on. Let me break it and go back in. If you have the app, there's a Bible. See a button right here for Bible. Click on Bible, and you'll have right here. You can do your study, and you can type it right in here, Genesis 2:2. And if you want an alternate Bible, You just go back. You hit the 3 bars at the top left. And then you scroll down and click Bible, and you'll get our secondary Bible app right in here, right through the app. You don't have to leave the app. You can go right to the Bible as you're following these sessions. Okay? All right. So I see 3 answers, right? Sister 916 Shansan says council army. Yes, correct. Somebody says Sabah means plenty. Somebody says it means host or power. The real usage for it everywhere else simply means armies. Interesting. So if we translate it and we see it means armies, hosts, really war armies, service, battle, warfare, soldiers, company. It all alludes to warfare, soldiers, army. So wait a second. And you tell me in Genesis chapter 2, it just says, thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the hosts therein. Vekal sebaam. Vekal means and all or and everything of the armies. What? So ha shamayim vehaaretz vekal sebaam. Interesting. So you're saying that the heavens and earth were completed, right? And all the armies in them. So the heaven and earth were completed and all the armies. That's what it should read. The heavens and earth was completed and all the armies. Well, what did they talk about all the armies? Interesting. Check this out. I bring this out all the time. Check this out. Job chapter 38, verse 4 says, where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? Or on what were its bases sunk? Or who laid its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy. Interesting. Kal bene Elohim. Bene, this is the construct form, sons of God, or sons of the divine council. Interesting. Kal means all. Kal bene Elohim. So you're saying that while the Most High is talking to Job, he's saying he's doing all this, laying the foundation of earth, determining his measurements, and that there were sons of God there who shouted for joy. So now we have an audience that is an army that is watching this take place. And when the earth is done, he puts another army in the earth. So he puts one in the Shemayim realm and he puts one in the earth. That's for another future lecture. But if you want to see how we get into the nitty gritty of that, the mechanics of that, sign up for our KHM Holistic Research Paradigm for Bible Study classes starting next month. And we're going to go in. All right. So I just wanted to throw that out there. It's a little interesting because we're going to go into that. We're going to try to find out what is this Nakash that we see here in Genesis chapter 3. What is it? Right? Is it a literal snake? Is it a saraf? And if it's a saraf, what does the saraf look like? You know, Yeshayahu, Isaiah chapter 6 comes to mind, but also you have Isaiah chapter 14, verse 26. Very interesting. And then you have Numbers chapter 21, where it goes into verses 6 to verses 9, goes into what this thing is. Because the Most High tells Moshe to put a saraf on the pole, and it says in the next verse, Moses put a nakash on the pole. So nakash and saraf is interchangeable. Interesting. But nakashet means bronze. It's a color. Interesting. But we're going to dive into that. If you want a little snapshot or insight of what that is, go ahead and check out the community tab. I put a post on the community tab where I go into that a little bit. And it's also on Facebook if you follow us on Facebook. All right. So let's get into the lesson a little bit further. All right. Let's get into the lesson a little bit further. All right. All right. So let me go back. Let's go back to Genesis, a better sheet. All right. We're going to go to better sheet, chapter 2, verse 2. All right. Now, let me move from here. I'm going to go to a document on the screen that I put together right before I decided to do this pop-up session. So let me get it on the screen. Hold on one second. All right. Let me zoom in. All right. I took me off the screen so that could be a little bit further. If you look at the top, you see all these tabs. These are all the books I read at any given time. Like I read multiple books. It's hard for me to read one book because it leads me to another book, leads me to another book. So I have to open up multiple books and multiple articles and just read everything. That's how I study. You know what I'm saying? So I put this together so that way you can follow along with what I'm about to break down for you. All right. We're going to get Better Sheet, chapter 2, verse 2. Okay. And there's the things I highlighted are things in particular that I want you guys to hone in on as we go through this. Okay. I'm going to show you something very interesting. This is why textual criticism is necessary. All right. For us to understand the text and be able to faithfully reconstruct the culture. So that way, when it's faithfully reconstructed, we can restore it in a more contemporary, modern application. All right. All right. So let me zoom in a little bit more. Hopefully this is big enough for y'all. There we go. That's even better. All right. Hit 1 if the font is clear. I'm looking at it on a computer, but if you have a phone, let me know. Hit 1 if the font is clear. Hit 1 if the font is clear. All right. Hit 1 if the font is clear. All right. Again, family, hit that thumbs up button as well. Make sure you share. Subscribe if you're brand new. Hit that bell notification. Hit all. All right. Hit 1. Hit 1. Hit 1. Ashan Judah de Leon says, can you go back to that definition? Are you talking about for Sabbath? You can get it as well. Again, what you want to do is go on the app. Go on the app that I told you, the KHM app, and click on Bible. And Bible, put Genesis 2:2, and you can find it in there. Okay. All right. Y'all hit 1. All right, cool. So let's get started. All right. Hopefully that helps us, Sean. Again, go to Bible. You can go online. Go to BibleHub.com or go to where we're at right now or what we were using, which is blueletterbible.org. And you can also look it up there and you can find the word your own. Okay. Latoya Roberts said, this is a little over my head. No, it's not. If you follow us. All right. If you follow us. All right. Give yourself more credit than that, Latoya. I'm guaranteed if you can follow that lecture I did on meditation, then you should be able to follow this. I'm confident that you can, sis. All right. Give yourself a little bit more credit. All right. All right. So right here we have the Septuagint, right? I'm not going to read all the Septuagint, but I am going to hone in on certain words here in the Septuagint because they're important. But let me read it in English, and then I'm going to read these words in the Septuagint and kind of give you a loose translation of it. All right. And the reason why I want to do it this way is because these words are important. Okay. Because these words can also be matched to things that we see in the New Testament, what's called the Brit Hadashah, using the Greek manuscripts. Okay. But it says here, and in the 6th day, the God finished his works, which he made, and the 7th day he rested from all his works, which he made. Now that's interesting. Okay, very interesting, because here, let me see if I can highlight it. Here we have the word hemera, okay, in the Greek. Okay, and then we have the word hekte here in the Greek. So hemera means day, hekte means 6. Theos here. So this has to do with him resting. Okay, and he rested, who? The God, on the 6th day. Interesting. Then it goes on to say, hemera, again, hebdome. Hebdome. And this hebdome is 7. So the 7th day, hemera means day. The 7th day, it says he rested, but on the 6th day, he finished his works. Whoops. Didn't mean to do that. So on the 6th day, he finished his works, theos. He finished his work. This is a nominative. And you have your iota subscript, which means we're looking at what? An accusative, right? You have direct and indirect objects, which is the accusative. So he rested. This is your verb, right? And he rested. Theos, this is your nominative or your noun. And this is here is your objects, which are iota subscripts. So he finished his works. God finished his works on the 6th day, right? And on the 7th day, he rested from all the works in which he had made. Interesting. Autau is there. Autau. So the reason why I'm showing you this in the Greek is because the Septuagint is a Greek translation of a Hebrew manuscript. Okay. We don't have that Hebrew manuscript no more, but the Septuagint is a Greek translation of that Hebrew manuscript. Okay. So this is interesting. But if we scroll down to the Masoretic text, we see something very interesting. We see Bayom ha-sebi'i, Bayom ha-sebi'i. Keep going. And on the seventh day, God finished his works. Bayom ha-sebi'i. The seventh, in the day of the seventh, he finished his works. Then he rested on the seventh day. Again, Bayom ha-shebi'i. So he finished his work on the seventh day and rested on the seventh day. Wait a second. Hold on. Which one is true? So we try to go to a third witness, and I went into the Dead Sea Scrolls because I have transcripts of all the Dead Sea Scrolls. And the Dead Sea Scrolls in the book of Genesis are fragments. We don't have anything for Genesis chapter 2, verse 2. No extant verse exists in the Dead Sea Scrolls that we have it today because those parts are fragmented and they were not preserved to this day. So we can't use this Dead Sea Scrolls. However, if you go into the Samaritan Pentateuch, which I did not add on here, it agrees with the Septuagint. Now, why do we have this difference within these three different manuscripts? Now, again, we don't know what the Dead Sea Scrolls would have said because we don't have it. We could speculate, right? And that speculation could be based on how the Yahad community did their day-to-day operations. And when it came to the Sabbath, we know the book of Jubilees that was found amongst the Qumran community in the Dead Sea region, that also talks about Sabbaths and the importance of Sabbaths and the Jubilees, right? So we can kind of surmise what it could be and speculate based on extant data. But the text itself, we have no textual data from the Dead Sea Scrolls in order to come to any kind of definitive position on this. However, we do have the Septuagint, and we also do have the Samaritan Pentateuch and the Masoretic text. Now, the Septuagint is believed to have been done in the 3rd to 2nd century BCE, right, before Common Era. The Masoretic text and the version we have today, that's found in the Biblia Hebraica Pseudo-Digencia, that is from the Leningrad Codex, which is an extant manuscript from 1000 CE. But it preserves traditions that have agreements with the Septuagint and some agreements with the Dead Sea Scrolls, which lets us know that there are pre-Masoretic elements in the Septuagint and the Dead Sea Scrolls. So the tradition of the Masoretic text is older than the actual manuscripts that are preserved today. Okay, follow me. So the Dead Sea Scrolls, we don't have anything from there. The Samaritan Pentateuch is believed to have gone back prior to the Dead Sea Scrolls, all right? But the version that we have today is believed to have come from about 150 CE. The Abisha scroll is purported by the community of Samaritans to be very ancient. However, some scholars date it to the medieval century. Some scholars date it even earlier. It's difficult because we can't take that Abisha scroll and do textual analysis on it, right? Because it's sacred to the Samaritans, right? However, they agree. They have the 6th day he finished his work, and on the 7th day he rested. However, the Masoretic text says on the 7th day he finished his work that he had done, and he rested on the 7th day. Interesting. So, which one should we hold to? Well, the one you have to hold to is the one that's going to be the most non-biased. Now, remember, we teach here about reconstructing and restoring the ancient pre-exilic Israelite culture. So all the texts prior to exile, we reanalyze it from a cultural perspective in order to fully extract its intended meaning from the author to the audience. Okay? So in doing so, in the realm of textual criticism, it is typically the textual variants that have the shortest form, that is believed to be the earliest form, do a process of deduction, and or the textual variants that are non-biased. A biased textual variant would be he rested on the he finished his works on the 6th day, and on the 7th day he rested. Why would you say that? Because the individuals that were responsible, the 70 that was responsible for translating this Septuagint from the Masoretic text, or in this case, the Pentateuch, what they call the Pentateuch, the Chumash, the 5 to the Pentateuch. They obviously saw something, and this is us speculating because we don't have the Hebrew manuscript. They saw something from their tradition where it says, wait, how can he finish the work on the seventh day and rest on the same day? So therefore it's believed that the Septuagint, whoever the translators were, and the Samaritans, that they actually modified it to agree with their current doctrine. And that doctrine about the Most High resting on the sixth day, finishing his work on the sixth day and resting on the seventh day, that is what I propose to be a Second Temple Judaism practice or custom, minhag. All right? You're going to say, well, Divine, why do you say that? When you go into textual criticism, right? Matter of fact, don't take my word for it. Let me put up a source, okay? Let me throw a source on the screen so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Let me throw a source on the screen. Hold on 1 second. Sean says, so now you like the Greek. Sis, I know enough of the Greek to make my way through it. Greek is fun, but it's not the type of fun I like. Like, I like the concreteness of the Hebrew. But I need the Greek, sis. I need to learn the Greek to do this type of work, to follow the scholarly works and articles and books that I read, as well as to talk to the Christian community who swears by the Greek, okay? So check it out, all right? Let me give you an expert in this field in the event that you don't want to take my word for it. And I don't expect you to take my word for it, right? Don't take my word for it. But let me show you something, okay? So 2 resources, all right? And one of these books is on our Patreon, all right? You can get access to it as soon as you pledge on the Patreon, or if you already pledged on the Patreon, you can get access to this book, all right? So let me show it to y'all real quick, all right? The name of this book is called Textual Criticism of the Hebrew Bible. This is the 2nd revised edition. There's also a 3rd revised edition, and I think the 3rd one is the one I have on the Patreon. The 2nd edition, I don't have on the Patreon. The 3rd edition I have. Nonetheless, Emmanuel Tov is one of the foremost scholars in the realm of textual criticism of the Hebrew Bible and academia. To me, he's my favorite academic, and I think he's the best when it comes to this work. All right, this guy is no joke. All right, now check out what he shows here. Now, this is from chapter 2 called Textual Witnesses of the Bible, and this goes into the pre-Samaritan text and the Samaritan Pentateuch. Right now, let me scroll in a little bit more so you guys can see. All right. Now, this says differences in content between this little symbol means the Samaritan manuscript, and this M represents the Masoretic text, right? And it says other sources, right? But check it out. Check it out. The Masoretic text is what we see, what I told you. Beyom ha-shebi'i. However, look at this. Beyom ha-sheshi. The 6th day and the 7th day. So the Pentateuch, Samaritan Pentateuch, he finished his works on what? On the 6th day, but the Masoretic text says he finished his work when? On the 7th day. And I just went into the Greek of the Septuagint and I pulled a little bit out there. Again, I'm refraining from being extremely technical and parsing everything out because I do not want to lose the audience. The sister just said that this may be over her head. I don't want it to be over your head. Let me know if you guys are following. If you're following, hit 1. If you need me to go back and put more emphasis, I will. But if you follow me so far, hit 1. All right. But check this out. Let me give you a second source so you can see what I'm talking about a source being non-biased. The most non-biased and the shortest form are typically believed through a process of deduction to be the earliest forms of the actual text, and then variants arise much later. Okay. All right. So let me show you this. Village faction, you're already getting ahead of what I'm about to say, but it's cool. You're already on the same wavelength. All right. So now check this out. All right. Let me show you the second source by Emmanuel Tov. And if some of you say, oh, you just, have an affinity for Emmanuel Tov. Okay. I have tons of the resources on this that say the same thing by textual critics in the same arena. If you want more sources outside of Emmanuel Tov, let me know and I'll post it on the Patreon or I can email it to you. But I just love his work. All right. You can look him up on YouTube as well. He doesn't have a lot of lectures on YouTube, But I have almost all his books on textual criticism, all his articles. I read everything by him. All right. He's the one that really got me into textual criticism as it pertains to the Old Testament. Now, when it comes to the New Testament, Dan Wallace and Bart Ehrman are the ones that really got me into textual criticism as it pertains to the New Testament. All right. Dan Wallace and Bart Ehrman, but Old Testament is Emmanuel Tov. All right. So check it out. Something that Emmanuel Tov says that I think is very important, where he actually shows you how textual criticism is applied as it pertains to this. All right. So let me show it to you. All right. All right. This is from a article that he wrote called Textual Criticism and Biblical Interpretation with examples from Genesis, Joshua, and Esther by Emmanuel Tov. All right. Now, this is where I want to hone in right here. Let me zoom in some more. This part right here. All right. This is from the Textual Criticism and Biblical Interpretation with examples from Genesis, Joshua, and Esther that I read earlier by Emmanuel Tov from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. All right. Tel Aviv University is obviously in Tel Aviv, right? Traditionally, textual criticism has been defined as a search to find the best possible reading of the supposed original text in terms of the comparisons between divergent readings in a given text. So what does that mean? The purpose of textual criticism is comparing multiple manuscripts to try to deduce what the original said. All right. And then in the process, there's what's called divergent readings. So what we want to distinguish and what we're analyzing for Bereshit chapter 2, verse 2, all right, or even verse 3, depending upon how the stanzas are structured, is, well, which one is true? Is it the seventh day he finishes work and rested the same day? Or is it the sixth day he finishes work and he rested on the seventh day? Which one is it? Well, he goes on to say here, such an effort can bear fruits in cases where we can find minor differences, such as in Genesis chapter 2, verse 3. On the seventh day, God finished the work from the Masoretic text, which differs from on the sixth day, God finished the work from the LXX or the Septuagint. However, there are numerous cases which reflect major differences in the editorial processes of the formation and transmission of the original text itself, thereby poses the question, namely, who created? Oh, this got cut off. Hold on. Let me grab the source real quick. It just got cut off for me. Hold on. Let me see if I can grab it real quick. Wow, it just got cut off. Where did it go? Let me find the article. Hold on, family. Give me a second. That was definitely unexpected. Where did I put that article? I might just have to just tell you, paraphrase what it says. Where is it at? I can't find the rest of it. But anyway, let me just paraphrase. So pretty much what he was saying in there is, in looking at the differences, you can tell there were more redactions that was done with the Septuagint, more particularly the Pentateuch, in that chapter than we find from the Masoretic text, which helps us to deduce the fact that there are editorial changes or variants that are made to agree with current doctrinal stances. This is what he's saying. So looking at the Septuagint, just in Genesis chapter 2, we can tell there are different editorial marks or redactions or stylistic changes looking at Genesis chapter 2 in the Septuagint, as well as the Samaritan Pentateuch, as opposed to looking at the Masoretic text, which is more cohesive, which means we can lean much more on the weight of the evidence of the certainty that the original can be better proposed to come from the Masoretic text, in this case, than from the Septuagint. That's not always the case, but in this case, it is. Again, it's a little bit more technical than what I'm saying. I'm trying to simplify as much as possible so I don't go over people's heads, but I'm simply trying to show you guys how this thing is done, okay? So you're going to say, well, Divine, if that's the case, can that be harmonized elsewhere in the text? Well, yes, if you understand Genesis chapter 2, verse 2, it helps to shed light on another passage of the text, namely Exodus or Shemot, chapter 16 and verse 23 in particular. However, I'm going to read you elements of chapter 16 for context, and you'll see that if the Israelites understood what was in Genesis chapter 2, verse 2, then as they're going, or what was revealed to Moses that was then given to the children of Israel, if they didn't already preserve it in their traditional customs, Semitic customs, traditions, from being from, Jacob to Isaac to Abraham, all the way back to Shem, etc. If they didn't already have it preserved, then it came from Moshe. A lot of that will be taken from the understanding that was preserved in Genesis chapter 2, verse 2. So if Genesis chapter 2, verse 2 states that the Most High rested, check it out, rested from his labors and finished the work. So he finished the work first and then rested on the same day. The day consists of a night portion and a day portion. So he finished his work all the way into the daybreak. And then when the daybreak came, he rested. And as he rested, it was a perpetual Sabbath for mankind. It was nothing but daylight for Adam and Eve, perpetual. But he did something prior because it was prophetic about what was going to take place after Adam and Eve was left out the garden. Now, when I say perpetual, we don't have a closing of the seventh day. We don't have a closing evening of the seventh day. We have it all the way up until the sixth day. We don't have a closing because it was a perpetual Sabbath. That's the Sabbath that Yeshua came to bring the children of Israel back into the Most High's intended Sabbath that we find in Genesis chapter 2. This is why you go and get authors of the epistles like Paul, who says that the last Adam. And then when you go into Hebrews chapter 4, it talks about entering into his rest. Yeshua came to bring the eternal rest of the Most High back to the children of Israel. The way he had to start that process is removing all the legalism. Somebody will get that. Somebody will get that. All right. So the mindset was work is done all the way into the evening, throughout the evening, all the way into daylight. You have Ireb, which means evening. And what is Ireb? It's the twilight that ushers day into night. It's that breaking point. Boker is the breaking point that breaks the night and ushers in the day. And it's three layers or three levels of twilight. I went over this with you before. There's civil twilight, there's astronomical twilight, and then civil twilight, nautical twilight, and astronomical twilight. Different phases of twilight. But that period of time is the transition from day to night and from night to day. Okay? Keep following me. So if somebody is getting this tradition and now they have the opportunity to translate this, because the Samaritan Pentateuch, if you look at it, it actually preserved, for those of you talk about Paleo Hebrew, two ways for you to actually learn the Paleo Hebrew. It's not a language. It's a script that reflects a language. It's biblical Hebrew, but reflects a language. Check it out. You go to the Dead Sea Scrolls that has Paleo Hebrew, and then you go to the Samaritan Pentateuch, which has also a form of the Paleo Hebrew preserved in the Samaritan Pentateuch. If you can read that, then you can convince people that, oh yeah, I know Paleo Hebrew. But if you cannot read that, then it's a problem, because they have a vocalization system, the Samaritans, that they place upon that, because they have the text as liturgy or use it for liturgical purposes, but they speak Arabic. But when they get into their synagogue or their Knesset, their congregation, when they have a temple and they read this Pentateuch, it is a form of biblical Hebrew. Interesting. I went to this up before, but nonetheless, so they have this tradition and they say, okay, the Hebrew text, we got it. Wait a second. Some redactions have been made. Why did the original coming down to us say he worked or finished his works on the seventh day and rested? Now, that had to be a scribal error. They made some redactions so it can align with their current traditions. However, the Masoretes, they kept the Sabbath from sundown, right, to sundown. Yet they preserve the original. And in this case, that's why you gotta go back and study the Masoretes. This is how you can tell when you do textual criticism which one to lean on. There's a methodology behind it, and we're going to give it to you. All right? Oh, I'm just reading what the sister Shansan is saying. She said, you saying understanding about the verses that came later is not valid as knowledge increases. Well, I'm not saying it's not valid. My objective is to reconstruct and restore the ancient pre-Exilic Israelite practice. It was the ushering in of Second Temple Judaism where a lot of the redactions happened. Just like they even talk about Deuteronomy is the latest portion of what we call the Chumash. It's the latest portion, and it has the most redactions and a lot of the changes based on the reforms of Josiah and Hezekiah. Okay, they influenced those changes, and during exile, the priesthood tried to get their strength back, which we find when they returned back to Jerusalem during Persian captivity. And now we have the final form of Deuteronomy, which is transferring a lot of the power back over to the priesthood and strict adherence to the statute, laws, and commandments by way of the priest's utterance. And then you lose some of the familial, what they call familial cultic practices in the home, like we see in Exodus chapter 12 about Passover. Now we see a difference that is created in Deuteronomy. So as time progresses, there are some changes, but our job is to reconstruct the supposed original. That's the objective. And I'm showing you experts that have already done this work before me, and I understand the methodology. And when I apply independently of what they write, I get the same conclusion. Okay. So again, this is important. So now check this out. Check it. So if this understanding is in a mind, we see other traditions, right? They're making little editorial changes to align with their doctrine. Masoretes, they kept it the way it was intentionally. And then they still kept their own Sabbath, sundown to sundown. They rested the whole day, right? However, the text that they have says the Most High rested. He finished his work and rested on the same day. Going into Exodus chapter 16, let me show you something. Again, walk with me. I'm walking you through it. And then from here, we're going to jump into the second portion. And if we have time, it's not too late, I'll open up to Q&A. Check this out, all right? Watch this. Exodus chapter 16. I have it here on my screen. Let me share it with y'all. Hold on. Give me a second. All right, I'm gonna go to verse 16, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to hone in on verse 23. So I'm gonna read through it for context, and I'm gonna focus on 23 and go into a little bit of the Hebrew into it and some of the Greek. Okay, so check this out. All right, let me bring it up on screen and get back to the document that I had. Where is it at? Okay. Let's scroll down. Let's go to Exodus chapter 12. All right. 23. But let me first give y'all this here. All right. All right. So at Exodus chapter 16, we're going to start at verse 8. Follow me. Remember, the context is how is the Sabbath understood? Right. And I'm going to break it down for you as we go through this. I've done this before, but I'm going to go into it again. Check it out. Follow me. All right. And Moshe said, this shall be when Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh. Hold on, let me change this because I have this in it defaults to the KJV. All right, let's go. Let's scroll up. Scroll up. Verse 8. All right. And Moshe says, when Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh gives you in the evening meat to eat. Well, let me give you context. The context is the children of Israel are complaining, right? Matter of fact, let me see. Might as well read everything. They set out from Elim, and all the congregation of the people of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai. And on the 15th day of the second month after they had departed from the land of Egypt, and the whole congregation of the people of Israel grumbled against Moshe and Aharon and the wilderness. And the people of Israel said to them, would that we died by the hand of Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh in the land of Mizraim, when we sat by the meat pots and ate bread to the full, for you have brought us out into the wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. Then Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh said to Moshe, behold, I am about to rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, that I may test them whether they may walk in my law or not. The Sabbath initially being instituted was a test of obedience. Are we still keeping that test today? Let's keep going. Exodus 16:5 says, on the sixth day, when they prepared what they bring in, it will be twice as much as they gathered daily. On the sixth day. So Moshe and Aharon said to all the people of Israel, at evening, you shall know that it was Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh who brought you out of the land of Egypt. And in the morning, you shall see the glory of Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh, because he has heard your grumblings against Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh. For what are we that you grumble against us? And Moshe says, when Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh gives you in the evening meat, keep that in mind, to eat, and in the morning bread to the full, because Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh has heard your grumblings, that you grumble against him. What are we? Your grumbling is not against us, but against Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh. Verse 9. Then Moshe said to Aharon, say to the whole congregation of the people of Israel, come near before Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh, for he has heard your grumbling. And as soon as Aharon spoke to the whole congregation of the people of Israel, they looked towards the wilderness, and behold, the glory of Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh appeared in a cloud. And Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh said to Moshe, I've heard the grumbling of the people of Israel. Say to them at twilight. Let's see. At twilight. Twilight. Okay. Look at this word here. Ha-arbayim. You have the word ereb there. So at twilight. So check this out. At twilight, you shall eat meat. And in the morning, ba-boker. And in the morning, at morning, or at the twilight that ushers in the daytime, you shall be filled with bread. Interesting. Bain, it's your word for at evening or between something. Ha-ard bayom. Okay. Oh, okay. Bayim. Excuse me. I said bayom. Excuse me. It's bayim. So this root word, ayin resh be, is your word for twilight. So at twilight, they're going to eat meat. And in the morning, they should be filled with bread. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Right? Check it out. Let's keep going. In the evening, quail came up and covered the camp. And in the morning, dew lay around the camp. So quails migrate through that region during that time of the year in which they were in the wilderness. Okay. So they were able to get the quails and eat the quails. Okay. And when the dew had gone up, right? It says in the morning, dew lay around the camp. And when the dew had gone up, there was on the face of the wilderness a fine flake-like thing, fine as the frost on the ground. Now check this out. The dew lay on the ground in the morning during the twilight hours. Dew laid on the ground. And in the twilight hours going into the evening, quail was there because now you still have enough light. Remember, civil twilight means you still have enough light to work, but the sun is starting to go down. Civil twilight into nautical twilight, you can still do a little bit of work outside, but then when you get to astronomical twilight, it's too dark to do anything, right? Can't even see your hand in front of your face. So during that twilight time, they was able to go and capture the quail during that twilight time, right? And during the twilight time, the dew was laying on the ground, right? And when it had gone up, right? So after it laid on the ground, it arose. It says a fine flake-like thing, fine as frost on the ground. When the people of Israel saw it, they said to one another, what is it? For they did not know what it was. And Moshe said to them, it is the bread that Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh has given you to eat. This is what Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh has commanded. Gather of it, each one of you, as much as he can eat. You shall take an omer according to the number of the persons that each of you has in his tent. And the people of Israel did so. They gathered some more, some less. But when they measured it with an omer, whoever gathered much had nothing left over. Whoever gathered little had no lack. Each of them gathered as much as they could eat. So you only grabbed enough to maintain equity in your home. That means if I have 10 people, the amount of the what is it or the manna that I captured will be more than a person that only has 2 people in their household, right? It was equity. It was equitable, okay? And Moses said to them, let no one leave any of it over till the morning. So now this is interesting, right? So now they're getting this bread during the day. They're to eat it at night, and they cannot allow it to go into the morning. This is a testament of obedience. But they did not listen to Moses. Some left part of it till the morning, and it bred worms and stank. And Moshe was angry with them because they're not being obedient. This test had to go out about the Sabbath to see if he was obedient. Are we being obedient the same way today? Textual criticism helps give us insight on the best way to practice the Sabbath. Follow me. I'm going to show y'all. Okay. Morning by morning, they gathered it, each as much as he could. But when the sun grew hot, it melted. So from twilight, when the night is breaking into the day, it went onto the ground. And as the day came through, it arose. That means as the sun started to wax hotter, we know that the sun waxes hotter as it gets to the midday or noon, from noon to maybe about 3 p.m. And then it starts to have a decline from there, okay? So they went and gathered it until the sun grew hot. And when the sun grew hot, it melted. On the 6th day, they gathered twice as much bread. So check it out. Morning by morning, twilight until the sun grows hot. What are they doing? They're gathering the bread. And on the 6th day, they gathered twice as much bread. When? The morning time until the sun grows hot. Follow me. This is when their activities are being done during this portion of a 24-hour period. Follow me. And on the 6th day, they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers each. And when all the leaders of the congregation came and told Moses, he said to them, right now, let's stop for a second. Let's break out back into the document I had up. All right. So it says, he said to them, this is that which Yahweh has spoken. Tomorrow, very interesting word. I didn't really go into the study too much this time for y'all because that could take another 2 hours. But go back and look at that word tomorrow. And I'm going to show you the indicators in here as we go through the Greek and the Hebrew. Tomorrow is a solemn rest, bad translation. A holy Sabbath, holy is bad translation. To Yahweh, bake that which you want to bake and boil that which you want to boil, and all that remains over, lay up for yourselves to be kept until the morning. That means on the 6th day, which comes in with the evening and ends off with sunset. Check it out. During that day portion of the 6th day, they're collecting everything. That 6th day ends once we go into the evening. And now during the evening time, they're eating the bread. Remember, they're boiling it, baking, they're being active in the evening. Why was these activities confined to the home? Because there was no artificial light like that. Now, they had some lamps and stuff like that, but it did not give a lot of artificial light. The moon gave a little bit of artificial light, but it depends on what phase it's in, okay? So they confined their activities that they would have been doing outside into the home, because it's easier to light up your home with candles than it is to light up the outside with candles. Much more difficult, right? And it says, do all of this to be kept until the morning. Well, why? Interesting. We have a couple of Greek words here. We have Sabbatah. We have anaupausis. And then we have hagia. I put the he, but it's hagia. So Sabbatah means the Sabbath, right? So it lines up with the Sabbath. We're really here. But then we have this word here. This word is a word for a rest, for resting. And hagia means set apart or holy. So this should be a Shabbat of set apart rest. The Sabbath, rest, set apart. You have kurios here. So to Yahweh should be a what? This is to the deity, should be a Shabbat of set apart rest. Well, when we go into the Hebrew, it's very interesting. The Hebrew here says Shab Baton. You have a dagesh and a bait, which means we double it. Shab, patach, kamet, shin, patach, bait, dagesh, kames, tav. We have a wav here with a cholam, and we have a final nun. Shabbaton. Now, what is this wav with the cholam and this final nun? Well, that's on. On is a diminutive, which means a smaller portion of something, a more endearing form of something. Then it goes Shabbat Kodesh. So Shabbat here, Kodesh, technically it should have lined up with this here. So think about it. You have a bilingual Hebrew living in Alexandria, being responsible for translating a Hebrew text to Greek, More than likely, they saw this version of the Masoretic text that says Shabbaton, Shabbat Kodesh. Okay? Now, the key thing is La Yahweh, because this rest that you're doing is to the deity. This is something to. You have your lamed prefix, which means to or towards. Interesting. Now, why am I saying this? Because we're going to get into this word here, mahar, and we're going to get into this word here, or aurion. Aurion. So here you have your diphthong here, aurion. Interesting. Your rho, your iota, your omicron, and your nu. Your nu. Interesting. So aurion, which means tomorrow, but I'm gonna touch on that in a second. But here, sabata, anauposis, hagia. Now, I think it's a little bit weird. Looking at the Hebrew and seeing how the Greek translated it, because you're not capturing Shabbaton. Shabbaton means a smaller period of rest on the set-apart Shabbat. So that set-apart Shabbat, the seventh day of the week, which consists of 24 hours, that's called the Shabbat, the only day of the week that's named in pre-Israelite culture. There's a Shabbaton, there's a little Shabbat, a little rest in that full seventh-day Shabbat portion of time. What is that little portion? Well, it's from the morning to when the sun ends its waxing hot. The period of time in which they are to do what? Gather or collect the bread. This is not talking about the evening or the quail. This is only focusing on the bread. Now, in the evening of the seventh day, the quail came during that twilight hours where they can go outside and grab the quail and bring them inside. And once they bring them inside, they're working on the bread they got from the day of the sixth day and the quail they got from that evening, that twilight period. They're confining their activities and still working in the evening because they're preparing for the next day, which begins at the twilight hours, because during that day portion, they cannot go out and gather or do any work. So they're to rest from their labors. And then you have this word mahar in the Hebrew, which lines up with the Greek word that we have here, au, your diphthong, your aurion. So aurion lines up with mahar, which means tomorrow. Now it's interesting. I want y'all to go back to homework because I don't have time to delineate on it. But look up mahar in the Hebrew. Find out the other places where mahar is used in context. Go to aurion in the Greek Septuagint. Find where it's used. It is referring more particularly to the next time period that's daylight, where work is done outside. Activities are done outside. So it's saying here, this is what Yohei commands you. Tomorrow, that means you're in the evening time, but the next time period when there's daylight, I want you to rest from your labors because it is a set-apart Shabbat, a smaller portion of rest in a full seventh day, 24-hour cycle. I want you to rest because you have to do this extra work in the evening to prepare for the day, which you're not doing any work from daylight to when the sun waxes hot. That's the period of time in which you are resting. I went into the Dead Sea Scrolls. I tried to look through my transcriptions. I cannot find any extant version of this manuscript preserved well enough in the Dead Sea Scrolls to kind of speculate what the Dead Sea Scroll says. Now, the Samaritan Pentateuch, unfortunately, I did this study a long time ago. I forget what it says. I didn't include it in this study, but I'm just looking at the Septuagint and Masoretic text for now. However, this is very important. This word ha-boker, the evening or the morning, you do all this work in the evening because when the morning time comes, you got to rest. This is why he said earlier on the sixth day, collect everything, get everything. You can work into the evening, but when that sixth day comes, don't let anything last until the evening, because if you do, it's going to stink and it's going to rot and worms going to eat it. This is how we know that if the mentality of the author of Shemot has the understanding of Bereshit chapter 2 verse 2, when they're looking at this, this is why they're able to write the narrative this way based on what's laid out in Genesis 2:2. The Most High did his work until the evening portion of the seventh day, and then when the daylight broke, he rested. So he finished up the work on that same day in the evening and rested. Because when we get to Shemot chapter 20, the purpose of the Sabbath, on top of testing them in chapter 16, 4 chapters later, it is now connected to what? Genesis chapter 2, verse 2. That is the thread. That is why I keep the Sabbath from sunrise or boker to sunset. More particularly, the time where there's daylight ushering darkness into day, and when the sun waxes hot, when that waxing of hot starts to diminish, that's when you can start getting into other activities. That's when your Shabbat actually ends, because this is the test to see if they're keeping it. And Romans chapter 15, verse 4, all things written aforetime written for our learning, so that we through the patient and comfort of the scriptures might have hope. Go back and look at these things. This gives us hope today that we can faithfully reconstruct and restore the Sabbath. Okay. All right. I'm done. I know some people may have got their feelings hurt because they hold to something different, and that's fine. However, I'm just sharing from you my position based on my research, and I'm giving you my sources, and I'm trying to go through the language as much as I can. All right. All right. Remember I told you about the Sabbath rest. When you go to Hebrews chapter 4, you have to understand Genesis chapter 2, verse 2. There was no closing to that Sabbath. There was no evening that preceded afterwards. It was a perpetual situation. Those other days prior was set up for creation elements, and it was a precursor to man being exiled, and then that system now reigning over the earth, where you have day and night, day and night, day and night. And what Yeshua came to do, based on the author of Hebrews, is to get us to enter back into that perpetual rest that the Most High intended for creation. All right. Roscoe Roberts, who are you talking to, my brother? Are you talking to me? You said I added to the word. I did. Okay. Well, you're welcome to come on in and have a discussion. Just let me know. Let me know. The line's open. I dropped the link. We could talk about it. Let me get into the second part, and then from there, I'm going to go on. All right? What are you talking about, Semper Reformata? He's funny. He said, wash hands. Washing hands is not in the Chumash. It's not in Torah. First 5 books. That custom is not there in regards to the Sabbath or eating food. Washing takes place for the priests for their priestly duties, but that custom arises much later during Second Temple Judaism, which is the post-exilic period of time. So our ministry tries to reconstruct and restore the pre-exilic Israelite cultural practices. All right? Anytime, Sister Ezra. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I am Sister Hadashah. She says that was good. I'm glad the sisters are catching it. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate that. All right? JD Israel, yes, you're not breaking any laws. You're not. However, you can still work in the evening of the 7th day, just like Yah did, right? He finished up his work and rested the same day. Same thing that we see in Exodus chapter 16. All right? All right. All right, so let's get into the second part. We had 1 hour and 38 minutes. Let's get to the second part. Let me bring up on the screen. Give me a second. I want to show y'all something. Wait, hold on. Let me see. All right. I'll bring this up on the second screen, and then I'll bring up the other sources on top of that. Give me 1 second. Okay. This is utilizing textual criticism to determine the Targum's influence on the New Testament. Okay. Now, if I was to read Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, and again, the upcoming lecture I'm doing is on what's called the Proto-Evangelion. the Proto-Evangelion. That is what the future lecture I'm doing, and that ties into identifying the Nakash, or the serpent, in Genesis chapter 3. Very, very powerful lecture that I'm working on piece by piece, and I will have it released for you guys very soon. Okay? I don't want to release it until I have it the way I want it. Okay? Now, if you was reading Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, within the pre-exilic Israelite cultural context, that means before they went into exile in Assyria, northern tribes, before they went into exile in Babylon, southern tribes. If you had this in your hand, right, and you was reading this, how would you interpret that? Now, a lot of my Christian brothers and sisters and some Messianic Israelites in here would say, oh, this is referring to the virgin birth, and this is referring to Yeshua. The text is not saying any of that. You don't see none of that in the text. Okay? In the text of Bereshit chapter 3, verse 15. That is what's called the Doctrine of Proto-Evangelion. Right? Proto means first. Evangelion is representative of the gospel. Okay? Where you get your word evangelist from. Okay? Or evangelize. All right? So it's taught in some Christian circles, academia and conservative circles, and layman circles, that the first gospel is here in Genesis chapter 3, verse 15 of the Messiah. However, I will tell you guys here that the initial intention of this had nothing to do with Yeshua, and it had nothing to do with a virgin birth. You will not find virgin birth anywhere in the Old Testament. Some people say, well, what about the book of Isaiah? That was not a virgin birth. Okay? That's not a virgin birth. Sorry to burst your bubble, but it's not. I've read through a lot of the scholarly works on this, and there's just a big disagreement because a lot of the secular Jews that are in academia, they're able to create the best interpretation of this without the presuppositional understanding of Jesus. I'm just trying to give it to you within its context. Now, developments happen over time, but I'm just trying to center you on this so you can follow me. Follow me. Don't get upset now, because typically when I bring information out, people get a little stirred up initially. Then over time, guess what? Those waves start to settle, and they say, I get it. Follow me. If I gave this to you guys, Genesis 3:15, try for a moment to flush out your mind anything you read other than Genesis chapter 3. Okay? If you was to read this, what conclusion would you come to? Now, this is also for those of you who can read the Hebrew. Now, in here, I'm going to also show you the Greek and the Targum. Okay, we're going to get into the Greek and the Targum. It's important. And then I'm going to show you Revelation chapter 12, 13. It's crazy because that wasn't supposed to show up. That's pretty much giving away a lot where I'm trying to get that. So let's do this. Let's get rid of that. Didn't want to jump the gun too early. Okay, but check this out. If you was reading this in the Hebrew, and there's several people in here that can read the Hebrew, if you had to read this in the Hebrew, show me where Jesus or virgin birth can be read into this. That's an eisegesis of the passage. And I can tell you where that eisegesis comes from or how it developed. But the initial understanding of this passage had nothing to do with a virgin birth. It had nothing to do with Jesus. It didn't. Now, this is from somebody who can be labeled as a messianic. You know, I consider, having a historical messianic stance. What do you mean by historic messianic? I follow the form of messianism that's followed by the 1st, 2nd, 3rd century Jewish Christians. I follow that form of messianism, right? So I subscribe to Yeshua, but I don't have to read my understanding of Yeshua back into the text. I don't do that. That's an eisegete. And I'm going to show you guys, maybe not on this particular session, but I'm going to show you guys in the upcoming lecture where this idea started to come from. I'm going to show you one idea when we get into the Targum, but I'm going to show you how this idea starts to develop. We're going to go through all the textual witnesses, patristic sources, scholarly sources, etc. We're going to go into our Roman Catholic Church's understanding. We're going to go to the Protestant understanding, the Lutheran understanding. I'm going to show you this, how this verse starts to transform through the pseudepigrapha, through the textual sources, through Josephus, Philo, going to the New Testament, to the Targums, to the patristic sources. It's deep. It's deep. But let's keep it within its context. Check it out. I tell people dualism, let me rephrase that. Theistic dualism, right, does not exist in the pre-Israelite cultural understanding of Genesis chapter 3. What do I mean by that? Whenever you have a narrative, you have a narrative with this type of motif or theme. You have an antagonist and a protagonist, okay? The protagonist is typically the chief subject of the narrative, and the antagonist is the one that opposes the protagonist. I tell people this all the time. Check this out. Watch this, right? Typological hermeneutics. That's exactly what this is, my brother Semper Reformata, right? This is what we're doing right now, typological hermeneutics. A type or an archetype is being created that later on things are developed or flavors given to it as thought forms start to evolve over time. And you have to follow this thread. So what I've done is I follow the thread and I say, okay, I see where it's going. However, if I can keep this pre-exilic understanding, I can still better interpret everything else. All right, this is deep. All right, check this out. Protagonist, antagonist. In Genesis chapter 3, who is the protagonist? Write it in the chat. Write the protagonist in the chat. I want to show you something. This is also why learning the Hebrew is important. Write in the chat who is the protagonist and write who's the antagonist. Write protagonist equals, write antagonist equals. Remember, protagonist is the chief subject of the narrative, right? And the antagonist is the one that opposes the protagonist. Write this down for me. I want to show you something deep because this also lines with the book of Job. Follow me. Follow me. Follow me. Write in the chat who's the protagonist and write in the chat who's the antagonist. Okay? I'm going to wait for y'all. And then from there, I'm going to go into the Hebrew to show you something because this is a misconception we have when you're eisegeting the text with that element of dualism. Dualism or cosmic dualism or theistic dualism, from my proposition based on my research of the development of Second Temple Judaism, was started through Nehemiah Ezra's rule. During that time, the Judeans had rubbed soldiers with Zoroastrianism, where Zoroastrianism teaches dualism. You have one opposite force of evil, one opposite force of good, one force that is over darkness, one force that's over day. And these two entities or forces are equally opposite and have the same amount of power and authority to oppose each other. That's dualism, cosmic dualism or theistic dualism. What I'm here to tell you is that it did not exist in Genesis chapter 3, and it did not exist in the book of Job, which is one of the earliest works of the Tanakh because of the archaic Aramaisms or archaic Hebraisms or archaic idioms and structure, syntax. When you go and analyze it piece for piece, I might do a future lecture on it when I get time, when I go in and parsing it out and show you the stylistic differences and these functions. And when you see these features, you'll be like, oh, this thing is old. And I'm going to show you how academia is able to examine these things. I'm giving you the same tools, the same know-how, the same resources. When you join the Patreon, we have all the books, all the resources. We have the language courses. We have all of that. So if you're on the Patreon, it'll prime you for the paint that you get when we get into the Bible study classes next month. But check it out. Okay. The antagonist. Somebody said protagonist is the serpent. Wait, how is the serpent the protagonist? Rashawn Washington. That's funny. No, he's not the protagonist. All right. The protagonist is the woman, Eve. Eve is the chief or primary protagonist. Now, you can have multiple protagonists, but in Genesis 3, the woman is the protagonist, Eve. The antagonist is the serpent. The dialogue reveals that. Okay? So if the woman is the protagonist and the serpent is the antagonist, this is what's going on. The serpent is not opposing the Most High. You know why? Because you have a very interesting feature in the Hebrew that pulls out when you get to Genesis chapter 3. And when you go to verse 15, which I'm showing you right now, and you're able to break this down into Hebrew, there's something very interesting that you see. The text says, We eba asit. So weba, which means and enmity or animosity, it says, I will put. You have the aleph suffix, which is the first person common singular. And then you have seat, which is your kal imperfect, which means a continuing action, but the kal's the simple tense. So who's the one saying that I will put? Whoever's saying I will put, and if you go back to Genesis verse 14, why yomer Yahweh Elohim El Nachash. So why yomer, and he said, third person masculine singular, and he said, kal consecutive imperfect, or he's saying, who? Yahweh Elohim, to the preposition El means to, ha nachash. So this is Yahweh Elohim that's saying this, that I will put enmity. Well, if he's saying that he will put enmity, he's in control or has the power and authority over both the protagonist and the antagonist. The antagonist is not opposing the deity. The antagonist is opposing a woman because he's saying, I will put the enmity or animosity between you and this woman and her seed. Now, we're going to get into that. It's deep. That's why as you go throughout the text, this entity, some people say it's Hashatan, it's the devil. We can go through it. This entity is not opposing Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh Elohim. Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh Elohim has no antagonist, according to pre-exilic Israelite cultural understanding of the text. When you get to the post-exilic period, now you start to see little works, extra biblical works, and intertestamental works where you start to see elements of this cosmic forces of dualism that starts to wage war against each other. It's interesting. But if we get here in Genesis chapter 3 and we say that the serpent is an antagonist, he does not oppose the Most High. When we get to Job chapter 1 and chapter 2, where it says Hashatan comes with the Ben Elohim and presents itself before, he's presenting before a deity or power that's greater than him. How can he oppose an entity that's greater than him? It's not dualism. The antagonist, the protagonist of the book of Job is Job. The antagonist is the serpent, quote unquote serpent or Hashatan, whatever you want to call him, the ancient serpent, dragon, devil. Whatever Hashatan is, whatever he is the one that afflicted Job. That is why he's called the adversary. And when you learn to look for nuances and features of that type of writing, those type of narratives, you're able to say, okay, who's the protagonist? Who's the antagonist? The protagonist is not the Most High because he's not being afflicted or opposed by the antagonist, which is Hashatan. Hashatan is afflicting Job, which causes him to go in a reflective state. We see a lot of the reflective form of Hebrew, the Paleo. We see that in the book of Job, go into a reflective state in regards to his own piety. They try to understand why this thing is happening to him. And then when the Most High comes on the scene, he checks him and said, man up, right? Stand up like a man and handle this work. I mean, that's what he said to Job. I didn't make that up. Follow me, fam. Just keep following me. You're getting it, right? So once you understand this, dualism goes out the door. The animosity is the Most High creating a situation where he's allowing that animosity, enmity, opposition between the protagonist and antagonist to happen over a period of time. Are y'all following me? Hopefully y'all follow me. All right. Now, Sister Ashanti says, is there no possible dual prophecy ever in the Tanakh? I'm not saying that. We just have to analyze everything piece by piece. But here, I'm just trying to show you when you have objective ancient Near Eastern scholars that are able to analyze this, and secular Jews who are scholars outside of the Christian paradigm or the Judeo-Christian paradigm, they're able to analyze this using the textual data. You don't have to add anything to this. But over time, as political, social, economic, migrational, new thought forms through acculturation starts to develop, now you'll start to see things being added to this simple passage. Okay, and I'm gonna show you a little bit of this, right? Check it out. Now, I'm about to show you something when we get to the book of Revelation. So family, those of you who are Messianic Christians or whatever, just hold your horses for a little bit and follow me. I'm going to show you something. I want to show you something, okay? So check this. It says, I will put enmity between you and the woman and between your offspring and her offspring. He shall bruise your head and you shall bruise his heel, right? Let me show you something in here, right? Check it out. All right. Very interesting when you see something in the Hebrew. You have ubain, and between zar, ak, or ka, you have your word ka here, right? Zar, aka, ka means your seed, between ubain, between your seed, ubain, zer, ah, this final suffix, hey, with your dagesh in the middle, this denotes feminine seed. You don't have it here, right? Zera, this is the masculine form, and ka is the suffix between your seed and between her seed. Hui here. Interesting. Between your seed and her seed. So people say, well, the woman can't have seed because, the woman can't have seed, because the concept of seed in ancient times is the man's sperm is considered seed and is sown into the womb of the woman. And what grows from that is a fetus, and that fetus grows into an actual child, right? The same way if a farmer takes a seed, puts it in the earth, and a plant grows out or a tree grows from it. That's the concept, the ancient Near Eastern concept of this, of what we're talking about, okay? So I will put the enmity between your seed and her seed. That's what it says, your seed and her seed. And he shall bruise your head and you shall bruise his heel. Very interesting what we see things here. The word shuf is here. Shuf, right? And then the word akeb, which is your heel, then your shuf, head. Now check it out. Check it out, right? We're going to see what this means right here, shuf. I'm going to get into it through commentary from experts who have analyzed this text. But your rosh would be your head and your akeb would be your heel. This is your head. This is your heel. But shuf is very interesting, and we're going to get into that a little bit. But check it out. If I was interpreting this, I would say, okay, well, the enmity and animosity is being placed between two opposing entities by a chief entity. That's number one. Number two, whatever this entity is, the antagonist, it's going to have seed. It's going to have seed. Now, remember I told you the Zohar interpretation of this, where it says that this entity had sex with Eve and gave birth to Cain. And I told you how they interpreted that by going forth into looking at Seth and said that Seth was made in the image and likeness of Adam, but this same thing was not said of Cain. The reason why you see that literary device there is because they didn't want to put any kind of honorific emphasis on Cain. The honorific emphasis of the preservation of the seed of Adam goes through Seth. Henceforth, why they say he's made in the image and likeness of Adam, because he's going to give birth to the chosen seed, because Abel was killed, right? Abel is killed, and Cain survives. We placed a mark on his head and sent forth. He goes to the city called Nod that he helps to build, and he gets a wife and then has children. And that's the seed of Cain. The text never says that the serpent had sex with the woman. We went into the Hebrew. Hebrew doesn't give you that. That doctrine is out the door, but I'm giving you the understanding as to why this interpretation was made, okay? Based off of looking at Seth being made in the image and likeness of Adam, this is how they was able to try to surmise, okay, this is how to best interpret what's going on here. However, it says the seed will have its own serpent and the woman have a serpent. So therefore, the offering from the woman can only be from a man, physical, but the offering from this entity could be from the entity going into a woman, creating its own. This is where we start to see first Enoch starts to interpret this when we go to Genesis chapter 6. It's deep, but hold your horses. Check it out. So over time, there were various groups that started to arise to try and best interpret this based on their social and political environment or, atmosphere at the time, right? So if we're in a situation where we're in captivity, we're looking for a messianic figure to come on the scene to redeem us from our oppression. Then when we go back to exegete or do midrash on the text, we're going to read this into understanding into the text, but the text itself does not give you that leeway. However, when we go into the Targum, we start to see a transformation. Now, the Septuagint agrees a lot what we see here in Genesis, and I'm gonna bring it up on the screen so you can see what I'm talking about. Follow me, just follow me, family. I know it's a lot, but just follow me. All right. No, Shan, that's a good point. However, there would be a scholarly case would have to be made for that without the Judeo-Christian presupposition. Can a scholarly case be made for that aside from the Judeo-Christian presuppositional understanding? If it can be, if you've done it or you have a paper or a book on that, sis, send it over to me, because in the future lesson I'm going to do, I'm going to go through all the major sources that interpret this text. But again, within that context, a lot of it was completed within the book of Genesis. I'm not going to say all of it isn't, because we see nuances of this survive in other passages, which is interesting, which will be your dual prophecy thing. But I'm trying to explain something to you. And again, trying to put you back into the mindset of the people during that time period. Again, this is not in opposition to Christianity, Messianism. It's not. I'm just trying to give you its context. Understand its context first before we can say, well, this is dual prophecy. To say dual prophecy is to have a future vision that you're reading back into the text. I'm saying without that future vision, how is this being interpreted, and how is this interpretation consistent across the board before we get into exile? That's the key thing we're focusing on. Okay. Now, check this out. Let me show this to you real quick. Hold on. Let me bring it up on the screen. All right. I'm bringing it up on the screen. Hold on 1 second. Where's it at? Okay, here it is. Again, sourcing up. Okay. All right. Now, for those of you who don't know, there are 4 types of Targums that has persevered today. The earliest one is the Neophyte. However, the chief one is the Onkelos one that was used, the Onkelos one, right? And then you have what's called the Pseudo-Jonathan one, right? Now, let me show this to you real quick, okay? Targum Onkelos, right, is a very distinct form of the Targum. And then you have your Palestinian Targums, which you have your Pseudo-Jonathan and your Targum Neophyte, which again goes to see which sects was in various areas and what did they think, how they think, what they thought based on the Targum. The Targum is an Aramaic paraphrasing of the Hebrew Bible. And the reason why, according to tradition, why the Targums arose is because when the Israelites came back from Babylon after 70 years of captivity, came back to Jerusalem, they found the book, or they was reestablishing the law. And when they read the book, it was liturgical Hebrew from a text that they had. And when they read it, everybody didn't understand it because a lot of people were speaking Aramaic. Henceforth, the elders were able to interpret it for them, and that created the tradition of the Targum, the Aramaic paraphrasing. Okay. And then over time, it got written down. All right. So here it says, and I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your children and her children. They will remember what you did to them in ancient times. Remember, the Masoretic text, we don't see it there. It's not there. The Septuagint also doesn't agree with that. However, when the Targums was coming about, there was a shift. What was that shift? That shift was going back to the statute, laws, and commandments, where the priests are holding the power and a chief governor acts like a king. And number 2, looking for a future king based on the Nevi'im's prophecies that is going to take over. Understand what is developing when they go into exile so you can best understand how these things are arising. It says they will remember what you did to them in ancient times. Keep that in mind as we go into the New Testament, and you will preserve your hatred. But we're going to see that word preserve. How is that word preserve used there? Remember that word shof or shuf? We're going to see that. I'm going to show you the commentary that builds on that, right? Shuth, right? And this word here, natah, right? Natah. We're going to go into natah and shuth. I'm going to read a little bit of the commentary so you can see what's going on here. They will remember what you did to them in ancient times. Interesting, that word remember. And you will preserve your hatred for them to the end of time. Parentheses means they added that for emphasis. It's not there. Okay. But when we go into the Septuagint, something very interesting here. It says, and enmity I will set between you and the woman. Again, that agrees with the Masoretic text. And between your seed and her seed, again, that agrees with the Masoretic text. As for him, he will watch your head. As for you, you will watch his heel. Some variants, but it still agrees with the Masoretic text. Check it out. Comparison of the Masoretic text, Genesis 3:15, with the LXX and Targum Onkelos version shows that the LXX follows the Masoretic text fairly closely, Onkelos less so, and the LXX and Onkelos appear to be related to each other. So even though the LXX and Onkelos agree in a lot of places, in this case, the Septuagint holds truer to the Masoretic text reading than it does to the Targum reading. Very interesting. But there's a word here I want y'all to focus. The word is right here in the Greek, right? Spermatos or spermatos. Spermatos. Well, what is spermatos? It's your word for seed. Ah, interesting. Okay. So check this out, right? Check this out. If spermatos is used there as seed, keep that in mind. And now we have this word ancient times. We got here in the Aramaic. So they will remember what you did to them ancient times, and you will preserve your hatred, or you would watch for them in the end. Why are you watching for them in the end? Because again, the messianic understanding of the people during the time that's putting together this is that in the end time, we're looking for the Messiah to come to put an end to the oppression that we're faced, that we believe is a result of the influence of the seed of the serpent, or the seed of this adversary, or the seed of the seraph. Again, this is important. As time is progressing, we see there is a shift based on the political and social situations. Now, check this out. Over here to my, well, actually, let me read this. The relationship between the LXX and Onkelos is noteworthy in the use of the familiar words to translate shuf. LXX uses what? What's that word there? For those of you who know the Hebrew, what word is this here? Tereu. Or excuse me, or tereo. Excuse me. Tereo. I said ooh. That's not a diphthong. Tereo. Well, tereo literally means to keep or to watch, but they translate that to preserve. Interesting. But then it says in both cases, while Onkelos uses natar to keep for the second use, and an expansion of natar for its first use, which is dekir or dekir. Check it out. Up here you have dekir right here where it says 15D, the line dekir. And then you have a play on dekir for natar. And what they're saying is that dekir is a variant of natar, and that's the usage of how it's being done by the Aramaic scribe of Targum Onkelos. Now, there's more technicality to that. And when you get into this particular article, you know, I'm going to post this article on the Patreon so you can read it in more depth. But I'm going to save time because I really want you to focus on this right here. Check out this right here, all right? The Palestinian Targums contain considerable expansions on the Masoretic text in the second part of the verse, and also show some influence from the Targum Onkelos, or the tradition that produced it. I want you to focus on the Palestinian Targums. And check this out. It says, and I will put enmity between you and the woman, between the offspring of your children and the offspring of her children. Let me zoom in a little bit more. Maybe it's not big enough. Here we go. All right, check this out. I thought this was powerful, right? And when the children of the woman keep the commandments of the law, they will take aim and strike you on your head. But when they forsake the commandments of the law, you will take aim and wound them on their heels. For them, however, there will be a remedy. But for you, there will be no remedy, and they are to make peace in the end in the days of King Messiah. Wow. Look at that. How much paraphrasing is added to the liturgical Hebrew text. That's why I said, if you want to understand what's going on in the New Testament, you have to read the Targums and the intertestamental writings, as well as even some of the pseudepigraphal works. Again, we have a book on the Hebrew pseudepigraphic works that is in the Patreon that you can access. Let's look at the other Targum. It says, and I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your sons and her sons, keyword, your sons and her sons. Interesting. That word bane is there, right? And it will come about that when her sons observe the law and do the commandments, they will aim at you and smite you on your head and kill you. Now, Here's the conundrum. The people who are Christians, or what I called conservative Messianic Israelites, when you read, check it out, when you read Genesis 3:15 and attempt to interpret it or exegete it, in the Targums, we see that the emphasis or the understanding through the oral tradition of the Aramaic was that this applies to those who keep the law and commandments. Now, watch how deep this is, because this connects to the book of Revelation. This is deep because if you have not studied this, there's so many nuances here in the development of time before we get the understanding of the New Testament. The Targums, or the understanding of the various Targums, comes from an early tradition that goes back to the return to Jerusalem from the 70-year exile in Babylon. This is where the Proto-Targum starts coming from before they get written down and preserved in the versions we have today. Now, when we look at the versions today and we analyze the text and do textual criticism on it, we see some archaisms in it or things that are more ancient. However, we do see some styles that are contemporary to the time period in which we have the manuscript preserved, which means forms of it show an earlier portion of the tradition. However, other forms of it show something more contemporary, right? That was placed into this text. But this is going to make sense when we get to the New Testament, because the understanding, follow me, of the 1st century CE Palestinian Jews who kept the law, they understood or interpreted Genesis chapter 3:15, not from your patristic sources, which comes later. They understood this based on the Targums that was being taught at the time, that this seraph, this serpent, this snake entity, whatever, that it would be struck whenever we keep the law and do the commandments. They will aim at you and smite you on your head and kill you. Then it says, but when they forsake the law of the commandments of the law, you will aim and bite them on his heel and make him ill. For her sons, however, there will be a remedy. You know what the remedy is? When we are awakened in our exile, return back to the law, and King Messiah restores us back to the land. That is when he can usher in victory against whatever this entity is. Again, in Genesis 3:15, that's preserved in the Masoretic text. That is the more older tradition, because again, remember, one of the deductive methods of exegesis when it comes to textual criticism is that the shortened form is believed to be the original, and the longer form are the textual variants that diverge from that original over time based on the scribe's disposition, the sect he's a part of, the part of Israel or Palestine he lived in at the time, their doctrinal beliefs, the social and political climates. Remember that. But the way Genesis 3:15 is interpreted by the Targums, which would have been understood by the 1st century CE Palestinian Jews in that region, was that this has to do with those who keep the law and the commandments. The Targum's use of Natar in a different way than in Targum Onkelos, like Targum Onkelos, they imply a continuous fulfillment. Now remember, my sister Ashanti says, well, can this be a dual prophecy? Well, the mind of the Targum scribe was that this is something that will continue all the time to King Messiah. This is how they interpret it. It was developing over time. However, we don't see none of that in Genesis 3:15 from the Masoretic text. It's not there. We don't see it in the Septuagint. It's not there. However, we start to see it in the Targums. We also start to see things like this in the pseudepigrapha. We see little elements of this. This article actually goes into the pseudepigrapha as well. It says, but add that the outcome of the struggle is dependent on whether or not the woman's sons keep the commandments of the law, and the struggle will have a conclusion in the Messianic age. Are akeb, which is for healed, is first translated, then allegorized as the end of time. Shuf is apparently taken with a double meaning, to watch or to keep, of LXX and Targum Onkelos expanded to mean keeping the law. Oh. And strike, which is also expanded to include aim, unless it's derived from the idea of watching. Bite and Targum Neophiti in 1 Genesis chapter 3, verse 15e may reflect an interpretation based on the derivation of the verb from the root neshuf, which means to blow, taken as to hiss. Hold on. All right, let's keep going. It says extended to mean bite, because the hissing is something that's done before a serpent strikes. So it's all related to a serpent. Now, remember, these people were living in an environment where they were pastoralists, agriculturalists, that was living in a natural environment that had snakes. Snakes was always believed from ancient times to be one of the natural adversaries of mankind. Okay? So much so that when we go into ancient Misraim, they sought for snake charmers from the Levant region and use those charms or use those spells in order for them to ward off snakes that were infiltrating certain regions of the Nile. It gets deep. But if you go back here, it says the idea of making peace with the serpent, Mahar says, has no rabbinic parallel. And it's contrary to Genesis by the rabbi in 25, which says that in the Messianic age, all will be healed except the serpent and the Gibeonite. McNamara's translation of the similar portion of the Targum, Neophiti, avoids this problem. Several features of the Palestinian rendering of this passage are of interest to us. The sons of the woman are described as prevailing when they keep the law. So I told you, the best talisman against demonic possession or affliction from demonic beings, if you're an Israelite, keep the law. When you step outside of that, you're outside of the bounds of protection. Now you are vulnerable. And if you engage in things of other cultures, now their protecting spirits or their tutelary spirits can now have authority to attack you because you're outside the bounds of your protection and the jurisdiction that Yah purposely set for his people. Follow me. Such a description is fitting for Israel, so that we see here an apparent equation of the seed of the woman with the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. McNamara noted that similar language is used to describe the seed of the woman from Christians in John's vision of Revelation 12. The dragon already identifies the serpent of old. Where do we get that from? Remember, we went here and we seen ancient. They will remember what you did to them in ancient times. So the ancient Nakash. We go back and that lines up here what we're seeing. This is what's influencing the New Testament. This thought forms that are developing over time based on the political and social climates. Okay? McNamara and future revelations. If you want to open it up and say future revelations, that's fine. McNamara noted this. The dragon, also identified as a serpent of old, went off to make war against the rest of the woman's offspring, those who obey God's commandments and hold to the testimony of Jesus. Now, let's slow down for a second. When we look at this thing, hold on. Let me get on the screen for a second. Hold on. And I'm going to get into the book of Revelations a little bit more. This is deep. I'm sorry. Some of that might have been covered up by the comment. I apologize. But let me, I know you can't see it. I'm sorry, Chadro. I'll bring it back up. Let me just talk to you 1 second. Our exegesis or midrash needs to be holistic. You need to take all variables into account before you proceed to come with an explanation. So in my pursuit of examining the Brit Hadashah, looking at my favorite version, which is the Old Syriac Sinaiticus Palimpsest, because that's written in Syriac, and Syriac is a form of Middle Aramaic, and it preserves a lot of the Aramaisms that's found particularly in the book of Matthew. Scholars of the Greek New Testament manuscripts even says that there's loads of Aramaisms in the book of Matthew. And when you go into the Syriac Sinaiticus Palimpsest, it resolves a lot of that because it's believed to have preserved a lot of the original Hebrew that is thought to have been circulation during the time of Epiphanes, Eusebius. Jerome himself said he saw it, and it's at the Library of Caesarea, the Hebrew version of Matthew, because he says Matthew wrote this. The English translation, he says, we don't know who wrote that. You know who did that. But he went on and made his own translations. As you know, Jerome also translated these texts into Latin. But when we go back and look at this thing holistically, it gives us a better lens to interpret things that we're reading in the scriptures. So when it talks about that great serpent, that ancient serpent, the serpent of old, that it made its way to make war against the seed of the woman in Revelation 12. This is deep. Follow me. Those people would have had the understanding of the Targum in their mind. So when you are writing this thing, the Targumic understanding is helping John, with his revelation, is writing this out. So he understands this war between this dragon and the woman. Again, remember, it develops over time where they've now extended the interpretation of Genesis 3:15. They've extended it because you can interpret it within the context of Genesis chapter 3. In the book of Genesis, or just the Chumash itself. But it's been extended over time. But follow me. Listen, follow me. So what I'm saying is, no, sis. My sister Shanti. I'm not saying knowledge that comes later is invalid. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, and people may agree, that there was progressive revelation through divine inspiration that occurred because Yah did not stop dealing with his people when Malachi closed. When the book of Malachi closed, he was still dealing with his people all the way up until we get what's called the Brit Hadashah, to the book of Revelation. He was still working with his people, but you don't see this thread of him working unless you take into account all of the texts that existed at the time and the various developments that happened over time. That's what I'm saying. And I'm trying to show you that when you look at this thing holistically and you get to the book of Revelation, you could better translate it if you understand the thought forms that develop post-exilic time. That's all I'm saying. Now, when it comes to that dragon that's going after the woman that gives birth to the man child, she's giving birth to the cedar offering, which represents Israel. And when the text is talking about those who keep the commandments and the testimony of Yeshua, are talking about Jewish Christians of 1st century CE Palestine during the time period in which John would have lived, which John would have been. Oh, excuse me. John would have been one of these Jewish Christians who would have kept the law and still subscribed to Yeshua. He would have kept the law, still subscribed to Yeshua. Paul kept the law, still subscribed to Yeshua. Jacob or James kept the law, still subscribed to Yeshua. Cephas or Peter still kept the law and still subscribed to Yeshua. And then you had whole groups that existed during that time period, which, people in academia call them the Jewish Christians, that kept the law and subscribed to Yeshua, which means the thought form that developed, which we find captured in the Targum, helps with our exegesis of the book of Revelation. So we know exactly who that's talking about. This is why you see when Yeshua talks about, or the text talks about Yeshua and 144,000 that are taken from all the tribes of Israel, and then we go into the last chapter, it tells the 12 gates of Israel. It's because it's talking about the Israelites who are keeping the commandments, the law, who are keeping the understanding of Yeshua, and they are the impetus or the catalyst to bring about this situation that's going on the earth. You have to watch Yah's people who keep the law and follow Yeshua. Those are the ones that the dragon is trying to get. And it's these individuals who has opened it up for the Gentiles to cleave. Yeshua was a Gentile. If you believe in Jesus Christ or whatever, you cleave into Yeshua. If you believe into the works of Paul, you cleave into Shaul, who's a Jew or Judean. If you subscribe to the rest of the general epistles, you cleaving unto Israelites. You're cleaving unto Judeans who are bringing forth this revelation. You're cleaving unto them. They've opened up the door by keeping the commandments and the law, and they are now allowing you to cleave because there are some that are in unbelief that is making way for the Gentiles to be grafted in. So that way they will have a place when this millennial age takes place in the book of Revelation. It starts to make sense if you look at things holistically. It's my understanding that historically, a lot of things were not looked at holistically, possibly because today we have access to a lot of these texts that they probably did not have, or I'm sure they didn't have. No one person had it during that period of time. But today, scholars are able to collate these manuscripts, these sources, and be able to look at things in a holistic perspective. Okay? So, Sister Shan, if you hear what I just said, it should agree with what you're saying. Right? If you get what I'm saying. Labor says, okay, so there's progression of understanding. If you subscribe to the New Testament, then yes, there is a progression of understanding. Or there's progressive revelation. And I went into the Targums before, and I showed you the source. Matter of fact, let me put the source back up on the screen. I know some of y'all wanted to see the article because it was probably something on the screen that went over it. Let me remove this off the screen so I can show it to y'all real quick. Oh, not this one. This is the wrong one. This one right here. All right. Let me zoom in so you can see. This is it right here. Targum, Onkelos, Septuagint. And again, the Septuagint and Masoretic text preserves the older version of this. And then in the Targum, we start to see a development of things that started going on, progressive revelation based on the conditions of the people. You know where else progressive revelation comes from? In the Tanakh, the Nevi'im. The Nevi'im brings progressive revelation because before the Israelites got a king, Yah was their king. Samuel was a prophet and a judge. And he was the one that was used by the Most High in order to bring in a king because the Israelites wanted a king. So Yah used that king thing because Israel asked for a king, not because Yah wanted to be a king. And then over time, prophets came to the kings. And then after the kings was in a degraded state, prophets was risen up to give progressive revelation of things to come as it pertained to the children of Israel. We hold to the Nevi'im, right? I'm trying to show you that progressive revelation continued after Malachi. And I'm trying to show you how it developed in the thought forms of the people based on the political situations. There was always this looking towards this Messiah figure that's going to come and destroy this serpent on the Kash that is representative of leading people astray and causing the empires who are subjugating Israel to their rule, that this King Messiah is going to come and destroy them, but there has to be returned back to the law and the acceptance of Yeshua, which we see builds up in parts of the Qumran community because they talk about a messianic figure. We see a messianic figure spoken about in the Talmud, and now we see a messianic figure being identified as Yeshua in the Brit Hadashah. So going back to Revelation chapter 12, again, the best way to interpret that from my perspective is to look at it holistically, see the first century CE, understanding of people who spoke Aramaic day to day. They knew some Hebrew through the scribe and priest who taught it or spoke from it liturgically, but they spoke Aramaic, which means more than likely they would have been familiar with the Targums. That book that I showed you, I want to show you right now, it makes that correlation, and it shows you the influence. Check this out, all right? Yasin, what you mean by that? I don't know what you mean by that. So you're saying they were writing stuff they couldn't interpret? I'm not sure what you mean by that. But definitely tell me what you mean by that. Let me finish this. I'm almost done, and I'll open it up to a few more questions and answers. Let's get into this document right here real quick. Let me pull it up. Check this out, right? And I want to show you something very interesting. Check this out. Revelation chapter 12, verse 13 says, and when the dragon saw that he had been thrown down to the earth, he pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. Okay. Now remember, this is an author, whether it was John or somebody else, Yakin or somebody else, that has in their mind Genesis chapter 3. Remember, I showed you there was a progressive revelation and the development of the understanding of that passage that now gets worked into the book of Revelation. Check it out. Revelation 12 and 17 says, and I have something highlighted in particular. Then the dragon became furious with the woman and went off to make war on the rest of her offspring, on those who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Yeshua, and he stood on the sand of the sea. The dragon became furious. Remember, the enmity with the woman, because he's trying to cause the woman to do what? According to the Targum, abandon the commandments. Because it's only when the offspring of the woman abandons the commandments that the dragon can be successful, have victory. And went off to make war, again, the enmity, the animosity, on the rest of our offspring, on those who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Yeshua, and he stood on the sand of the sea. Now, remember, King Messiah, that means the Targums, remember, it's not written by people who follow Jesus. The Targums was writing, saying about keeping the commandments and the law, and looking to King Messiah. Now we have Jewish Christians who are keeping the law and identifying Yeshua as King Messiah that are now melding this into Revelation. Now, this word here, very interesting word. Spermatas. spermatas, which we get the term for seed or for offspring. Very interesting. And the reason why is because when we go back to the Septuagint LXX for Genesis 3:15, it uses the same exact word. It's not a different word. It's the same exact word, which means there's an allusion back to Genesis chapter 3 and verse 15. A couple of things there too. When we look at furious and making war and line it up to that word that's used there or translated from the Greek for enmity. So I'm going to stop here because I could keep going all night on this. I keep going. But what I'm simply trying to say is this, okay? Your exegesis of the text has to be holistic. You have to take account all of the manuscripts of that text that you're reading. So if you're reading from the Marietta text, well, what does the Septuagint say? What does the Samaritan Pentateuch say? And we have any portions of the Dead Sea Scrolls, what does that say? What about the Nash Papyrus? Because that exists also. That's another thing to compare it to. You got to look at all these things, and there's thousands of manuscripts, not just one manuscript, there's thousands of manuscripts that was created. So you look at these things and you look at textual variants, you deduce to say what's the shortest form that is the most biased, and then look for the textual variants that diverge from that over time. And you see the development of thought forms, right? After you look at that, you say, okay, let me look into the archaeology of that time. What material, cultural items was left behind to help me to interpret this? Then you say, well, let me look at sister cultures. Then you say, what was going on in history during that time, right? Then you say, what was the political and social stresses of the people? What is their geographical location in which they live? What was the diets in which they ate? What cultic items were they buried with, right? What are the things that was going on within that particular time frame? And when we look at the emergence of Israel, it happened during the Iron Age period, the early Iron Age period, Iron Age 1, Iron Age 2 period, okay? But there's a precursor to that, which is the migration into the land during the late Bronze Age period, right? I tout that the Exodus occurred in 1446 BCE approximately, and that by the time Yeshua or Joshua brought them into the land, it was about 1406 BCE. That's approximate, and that is based on my preliminary studies that I've made, all right? So if we're going back and we look at this thing holistically, you're looking at cultural items, mannerisms, customs, history, political, social, economic stresses, geographical location, what's going on in the immediate environment, how did they build their house, how did they eat day to day, how did they interact with each other, what does the four-room house mean, what does it signify, cultic items that they possessed, right? Ways in which they were buried, all right? Inscriptions. Now, let me show you a lexicon right here that you guys should get. Again, remember, we're looking at this holistically, right? Let me show you a lexicon that I always encourage people to get. Because what it does is it captures Ben Sira and it also captures the inscriptional Hebrew and compares it with biblical Hebrew. Check it out. Let me show it to y'all. Let me show it to y'all, right? Where is it at? Where is it at? Here it is. Here it is. Everybody needs to go and get this book. I have mine around here somewhere. Let me throw it on the screen. Check this out. And it's also David J.A. Klein has also written various academic articles on his approach to creating the concise dictionary of classical Hebrew. Now, he has an extended form and he has a concise form. All right. The extended form is an 8-volume set. I have not gone through that 8-volume set. That is extensive, but one day I wish to own it. It's expensive and I wish to go through it. However, the concise form takes most of the major lexical entries and condenses it into this book here. And this book is 510 pages. Okay. Now, what this does is that he takes, check it out, not just biblical Hebrew words or lexemes. He also takes the Dead Sea Scrolls, Ben Sira, and the ancient Hebrew inscriptions that we find in the Iron Age. And what he does is that he derives a semantic range based on adding all of these elements, which is amazing. Because what it does is it takes into account how a word may have been used in a particular context during the Iron Age period, where we found certain items or artifacts in shit too. One of them being the Siloam tunnel inscription. And that is a particular form of Hebrew that is older than biblical Hebrew. But he takes the forms of Hebrew from that, the lexemes, and what he does is that he adds it to the domain, the semantic domain of the range of meaning of that particular word by looking at the Dead Sea Scroll words that we don't find in biblical Hebrew lexicons, the Ben Sira, and inscriptional Hebrew. An incredible work. That's why I need to get all 8 volumes. However, this one has been suffice enough, and it is incredible. Again, holistic research, KHM, holistic research paradigm. We use all of these elements when it comes to doing Bible study. Okay? What? I don't know what you're saying, Keith Williams. Excellent question. Numbers chapter 24 says, and I want to bring up another passage for you to coincide with that, which I think will be interesting. Check this out. You're probably familiar with this passage as well. My subscription is that entity for Numbers 24 is some kind of King Messiah figure that's coming later on. All right, but check this out. When we go to Job chapter 19, verse 25, he says, "For I know my Redeemer lives, and at the last he will stand upon the earth." Okay, and this is believed to have been a redaction as well, based on the messianic understanding of the Israelites during the time period in which this was redacted. All right, verse 26 says, "And after my skin has been thus destroyed, yet in my flesh I shall see God, whom I shall see for myself, and my eyes shall behold, and not another. My heart faints from within me." All right. So he's saying that this is going to happen. He said he knows his Redeemer lives, and after his skin has been destroyed, that's at the last that he's saying, he shall see God, and the Redeemer will stand upon the earth. So the Redeemer, right, is an agent for the Most High that's going to be there in the end times. This aligns with what we see in Numbers chapter 24. Okay, so this happens much later on. Okay, so again, if you have a messianic understanding, this is how you interpret it based on progressive revelation. However, if you just have a Tanakh understanding, you're saying this is a future prophecy about a future King Messiah that's coming, and you don't identify Yeshua Bar Yosef with that King Messiah character. See, I try to study this objectively despite my subjective views. Okay, what I'm simply saying is some elements in the text can be resolved within its own confines without being extended elsewhere. But if you subscribe to the extension or the continuation of divine revelation through progressive revelation over time, then you start to see these things. But then it's like, at what point does your progressive revelation stops? Does it stop with the closing or the canonization of what we call the New Testament? Or do some people believe, like some people believe, that the church fathers were inspired and they've added to that progression? You know, because the Roman Catholic Church believes in tradition and scripture, and they hold them side by side. Sometimes even tradition over scripture, or they use tradition to interpret scripture. What I do is I strip that out. I say the best way to interpret the scripture is looking at the language, looking at the culture, looking at the history, then looking at other existential things to line up with that. And then you can best interpret what's going on in its original intention. And then over time, it's that original foundation laid is alluded to build a home. It's like creating a house, and there's a foundation that's created, very solid foundation. What happens is somebody comes along and demolishes the house. Time goes by, and then somebody comes by and they start to excavate the area, and they find a solid foundation. Like, oh, look at this foundation here. Wow, this is great. We can build another good house of that. And then they use the foundation and they build a house, because the initial house was destroyed. So what you're doing is you're using the same foundation, which is the Humash, and you're building onto that. And then after you build, you have to go in and renovate and fill it and add, just like, yes, I mean, the Most High did when he was creating everything in the known world. He separated and filled, separated and filled, separated and filled. That's what he was doing. And that's the thing that we have to do. All right. So I'm going to stop here. And thank you for your feedback, Sister Ashanti, because I value your input. All right. Because I look to you as a teacher as well. So I value your input as well as the other people there. Now, I don't know what Keith Williams is saying. I'm not sure what he's saying. Keep the law perfectly in Christ. Obedience is the product of salvation, outward expression of faith. That's what Sister Shika said. My brother Labor Moon says your full presentation, what I'm looking forward to. I see the points you made this evening. And when you bring more out, I can examine and come to a conclusion. No problem. And remember, in the Patreon, I'm going to be putting these resources. And if you're already in the Patreon, you can access these resources. You can access these books and these articles because I post them frequently in the Patreon. All right. So with that said, we're over 2 hours. I'll give 5 minutes to take a few more questions if you have them. All right. 5 minutes. Is there another question that you guys have based on what was shared on tonight? Please just keep it focused on what was shared tonight. All right. And again, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. If you're brand new, hit subscribe, hit that bell notification and click all, and then go back and check out all the archives that we have on this channel. We have tons of good work like this on this channel. All right. Appreciate y'all for being up at 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Those of you who are on the East Coast, West Coast, y'all got a little bit better. It's like 11 p.m. over there for y'all. And then there's some of y'all that is 1 a.m. or some of y'all got 12 a.m., etc. But is there any other questions before I go? But I'm supposed to be obedient. You mean obedient to the law given to Moses by Abba Yah? Why do we need Yeshua practice the law? I'm not sure what you're saying. You says, am I supposed to obey the law of Moses given by the Most High? And if so, why do I need Yeshua to practice the law? You saying what? I'm not sure what you're saying there. I'm not sure what you're saying. So I don't know. You have to kind of rephrase that a little better, maybe fix the grammar a little bit so I can understand and not misquote you. All right. All right. Let me see what else. Thank you so much, my sister. I am Sister Khadasha. Thank you so much. My brother, I'll have to rewatch the video. I'm just tuning in. No problem. Again, another book that I recommended, or a book that helps to elaborate on the importance of understanding the Targum to interpret what's going on in the New Testament. I added this book before. I'm going to show it again on the screen. It's called Targum and Testament. Revisited, Aramaic paraphrase of the Hebrew Bible, 2nd edition by Martin McNamara. Now, McNamara is quoted in that work that I showed you, in that article I showed you when we was going into the Targums. He's quoted, right? So he is somebody that is well known in that area of study. Let me bring the book on the screen so you can see what that book is. All right, here it is right here. All right. Targum and Testament Revisited. This book is available in the Patreon. So if you're not part of the Patreon, sign up. www.patreon.com/DivineProspect. This and the articles that I shared on tonight will be there. So you can go and review it yourself, peer review it yourself. Any sources that I use to help with my analysis, I always make it available to the community. I never hide the ace up my sleeve. I don't do that. I'm very fair and transparent when it comes to my scholarship, whether you agree or disagree with what I say. Okay. All right. No problem, my sis. Get some sleep. Get some sleep. And thank you for your feedback. I appreciate it. Right. All right. Why is it so difficult to see where him and Ethiopian history line up with these prophecies in our collective Hebrew story? Are you saying that Ethiopian history preserves a lot of the prophecies, maybe an unveiling of Haile Selassie or other events that happened in the history of Ethiopia and its connection to the things that we're reading? Is that what you're saying? Let me know. All right. My brother Semper Reformada, in light of your attempt to reconstruct the culture through textual criticism, what is your epistemological, which means epistemology is how do you know what you know? The method behind establishing what is known. All right. What is the method that you take to understand something? Grounding for the revelation of Yah. Do you hold to any form of certainty? Right. Now, that's layered. But what I'm assuming you're saying is through the reconstruction of culture, sexual criticism is one means of reconstructing a culture. Right. In regards to me knowing Yah's revelation, or what grounds me in knowing the revelation of Yah, is looking for that consistent thread that I'm able to find by looking at all the external data. There's always a consistent thread. If you know to turn over the stones that are hidden, the nuances, the little things. Oh, let me see what that is. Turn it over. Oh, it is always going to reveal to you a thread that goes throughout. And in this thread that goes throughout, it has led me to subscribe to what we get in the Brit Hadashah, because I can show the thread, and I can show it either in the Tanakh itself, or the Chumash itself, or the thread that is the springboard for the development and the closing of Malachi, Persian captivity, Grecian captivity, Roman captivity, leading all the way up to the New Testament, which means I have to look at the Qumran caves and look at the Dead Sea Scrolls and the scrolls outside of just the canon of texts. I have to look at the pseudepigrapha works. I have to look at the Targums. I have to look at the Septuagint, the Samaritan Pentateuch, and their doctrinal subscriptions. I have to look at the archaeology. Matter of fact, let me give you a book. Let me give you a book, another source. Let me give you a book. All right? Because we share books all the time here. Let me show you a book. All right, check this out. Then I'm gonna close after this. Okay, here's a good book. All right, two good books that I recommend in order for you to understand, or how do you ground yourself, right? Ground yourself of what you know as it pertains to revelation of Yah during the reconstructive process. Is look for the nuances and thread them and see where that leads. See what it opens up. See what it unpacks. This is why I'm able to go back to Revelation and see threads. Remember, I told you the book of Revelation is one of the least extant manuscripts in all of the New Testament. And what's interesting, it has the least textual variants. All you got to do is go to Dan Wallace, who's an expert in textual criticism of the New Testament, and he will tell you and assert that the book of Revelation has the least amount of textual variants. Now, there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. And there's a reason why it's the least attested manuscripts amongst all of, meaning that there's the least amount of manuscripts that make up Revelation than any other book of the so-called New Testament or the New Testament. All right. But here's two books that I think is very important. And I end off on this for you to get that grounding. Okay. Check it out. All right. Again, family, remember, I will be live again Thursday and Friday. All right. So if we missed anything today, hold it for Q&A on Friday, because I'm going to open up the lines on Friday, open up the pen on Friday, and we can just have our Royal Rumble, right? Edifying, building as brothers and sisters, all right? So check this out. Let me show this to you real quick, and you can read this for backdrop. Again, all of this is in the Patreon. This one is by N.T. Wright. Anybody, and Michael F. Bird, anybody that's in the Christian circles that read works of scholars know who N.T. Wright is and know who Michael F. Bird is, okay? They put together this book called The New Testament in Its World. An introduction to the history, literature, and theology of the first Christians. You must read this. It's imperative that you read this. The second book is, hold on, let me fix this so I can zoom in better. It's called The World of the New Testament, Cultural, Social, and Historical Context by Joel B. Green and Lee Martin McDonald. If you want to understand it. Now, if you want to understand Yeshua and the things that he was teaching when he was dealing with the Pharisees and his people, you know, the scripture says he's only gone but to the lost sheep of Israel. If you want to understand that context, well, here's some books that help you with that context. All right. The one I gave you, Targum and Testament Revisited. The second one, the Gospel of Matthew and Judaic Traditions. The other one is Jesus and the Sabbath in Matthew's Gospel. All right. If you want to understand the 1st century CE, 2nd century CE, 3rd century and 4th century CE, Jewish Christians who've preserved keeping the commandments and the testimony of Yeshua. And guess what happened to those groups? They got killed off. Whereas so now you have a dichotomy of only Jews and Christians. People who say I'm ethnically Israel, keeping the law as cultural mandates of my customs, ethnic customs, and keeping Yeshua, they're the most persecuted. And there's a history for that. Here's a book here. It's called Jewish Believers in Jesus, The Early Centuries by Oskar Skarsween and Radar Havalvik. Excuse me. You have Recovering Jewish Christian Sects and Gospels by Petri Leomanin. And then you have one of my favorites. This one is called Nazarene Jewish Christianity from the end of the New Testament period until its disappearance in the 4th century. Remember, I told you, there was a concentrated persecution of Jewish Christians by Jews and Christians to the point where by the 4th century, they disappeared. We are the embodiment and we are the reemergent that holds to the same pedigree as those individuals. That's my stance. Now, other Israelites might not have that stance. That's fine. So that's why when I look at the text holistically, it lines up by those 1st century CE Palestinian Judeans who kept the law and subscribed to Yeshua. You know, the same ones that James was talking about. They were believers and they were zealous for the law. You know, when James checked Paul in Acts chapter 21, because rumors were going about that he was telling the Jews amongst the Gentiles to forsake the law of Moses, not to circumcise and get rid of the customs. And he told them, yo, go and do these customs, which some people purport to be the Nazarene vow. Paul went and did it to show that he lives in observance of the law, because he did. Jewish Christians, as an Israelite, subscribe to the law, subscribe to Yeshua as a Messiah for the children of Israel. He opened up the door for the atonement for Israelites getting back in alignment with the Most High. Simple. All right. So shout out to my brother, the Black Karib. Thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that. Is the Messiah figure in Numbers 24 Yahusha Bar Yosef, or Yeshua Bar Yosef, or Yahusha Ben Yosef? Possibly. And I say possibly because if you ask me from a messianic perspective, of course you're going to say yes. Right? From a messianic perspective, you will identify or create a profile that he can fit. And then same thing with Job chapter 19, verses 24, 25, and 26. You can say that Redeemer can also be Yeshua Bar Yosef. But if you're messianic, you would say that. If you're not messianic, you will not say that. You will say it's an entity that is soon to come. You know, the Son of Man that Yeshua says is to come. All right? Bar Ehrman also separates the two. But people like Dan Wallace, who's a textual critic and also a Christian, he finds harmony, just like Michael Heiser also finds harmony with the two, right? In the Talmud, you see, or the Talmudic practices or rabbinic Judaism, you see a separation. There's two messiahs, one that's going to be sacrificed and one that's going to come back and rule and reign. And the Dead Sea Scrolls, you have Melchizedek, who is one messiah, and then you have another physical messiah. And they're both going to work together. The scroll of Melchizedek lays that out. So again, it depends on your position, right? I can say, well, Yeshua fits that profile. And I can also make arguments against it to be objective. It's just based on, you know, how you do your scholarship. You know, I try to remove the biased lens. I can tell you what my subjective position is and then give you the objective position on various people's positions on something as it pertains. All right. All right. So I'm going to end. It's almost at 3 hours. You know, again, any other questions, concerns, you can email it to us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. Give us some time to get to it because we had a huge influx of inquiries and requests as of late. Please download the app, all right, and use the app to communicate with us. Join groups, sign up for membership. Go to Patreon, which is the 24/7, 365 after party, www.patreon.com/DivineProspect. We will have a Christmas Eve special this Thursday. We will have a Freestyle Friday, y'all willing, if I'm not burnt out, on Friday, which is Christmas Day, and we will go in, take all challenges, have builds, and whatever the case may be. And if any questions or concerns that comes up here that we don't address, then guess what? You can propose it when we have the open panel on Friday and take questions. All right? All right. Seth says, what's your stance? My stance is I'm a Messianic Israelite. So I take the stance of what was revealed in the Qumran caves, what was revealed in the Targums, and what's revealed in the Brit Hadashah, holistically. That's my position. All right? All right. So Get Wise says, before the Messiah came on the scene, did our forefathers receive salvation? Yes, they did. Of course they did. Yes, they did. And then as things progress, because again, even with receiving salvation, because of the state of Israel collectively, there's a future branch, a righteous branch that's to come. And David will also be a prince, but there's also a righteous branch from the seed of David that's going to raise up. And when David is resurrected, he'll be a prince in the New Jerusalem with the righteous branch. So they was always looking towards the righteous branch in the exile. All right. Seth, if she comes back on, yeah, no problem. All right. Thank you so much, my brother Kevin Powell. He said, I feasted so much tonight. Yummy. Once again, a buffet of knowledge. I pray that this knowledge brings you in closer relationship to the Most High Yah. I pray that it will encourage you to keep his commandments, to understand the ministry of Yeshua, and to keep you humble. Knowledge should not puff you up. And if you're puffed up based on knowledge, you are lacking in love. Love edifies, knowledge puffs up. Those are the words of Shaul, and I agree with that. So only allow the knowledge to make you an even greater servant and teaching others to lead them to the source, which is the Most High. All right. So hopefully I was able to help somebody on today and serve somebody on today. If there's any assistance that we can provide you guys, no matter what it is, email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. Either we can or we won't be able to help you. If we can't help you, we'll point you somewhere else. But we'll at least make an attempt to assist you if you need it, because we are here to serve the community. This is not just a ministry we give all this deep scholarship, even though it's necessary to reconstruct and restore our culture, but it's also a ministry of servitude that we're here to give back to the community, and we do it. And this is why when we raise money through donation that you get, guys give through super chats, through Patreon, through miscellaneous donations, by patronizing our services, it goes back to provide free services to the community, money to those in need, access to resources that we need to build our nation, and for us to come together collectively on common denominators. So on the common denominators, we can create this environment that we can then debate or dispute on the numerators, rule on it by establishing our own Beit Din, and with that, await Yah's redemption of his people by being a self-autonomous community where we have cultural autonomy over every aspect and facet of our reality, because that's the only way you can be truly set apart. Because if you're not set apart in that way, you will still be tethered to this world. So when the world is judged, you will be judged along with it. You must learn how to be independent of the things of this world, because when it gets judged, you must be an untouched Goshen that is preserved for Yah to come and take it. And understand in contemporary times, what is that lamb's blood that we utilize to preserve our people in the midst of death, judgment, and destruction? That is for you to figure out. And once you have it and you apply it, you will find your redemption. And with that, family, thank you so much for watching. Thank you guys for your prayers. Thank you guys for sharing this video. I appreciate that. All right. Hopefully you guys enjoy the rest of your week. All right. Again, I will be working on Christmas Eve and Christmas because it's not my Sabbath. Right. However, we will have a special on Thursday. We will hopefully have Freestyle Friday on Friday, and I will come back to serve my people. I love you guys. All right. Thank you for watching. Enjoy.